Chapter 630. The Dragon Slumber Shrine was located in the center of the Dragonbone Wilderness. This land covered in ice and snow was also the place where the souls of the dying dragons, who were seriously injured or seriously ill, or had exhausted their lifespans, returned to the earth. Huge dragon skeletons could be seen everywhere on the snowy ground. If these incomparably hard dragon skeletons were to flow into the human world, it would undoubtedly be a huge fortune that would attract the covetous eyes of countless powerhouses. However, here, it was only an ornament that inevitably existed in the dragon graveyard. Clothes. Clothes. Even though he had been to the Dragon Slumber Shrine more than once in the game, when he witnessed this unprecedented miracle with his own eyes, Duque still felt shocked. On the left and right sides of his field of vision were flying snowflakes and an endless wilderness of bones. In the middle, there was a huge ravine that divided the entire Dragonbone Wilderness into two. Standing at the end of the ravine was the Dragon Slumber Shrine. When the glittering golden shrine with countless golden domes attached to the main tower appeared in Duque's field of vision, Duque's heart felt as if it had been hammered by a sledgehammer. The Dragon Slumber Shrine in the game was always an illusory data model. If there was a word to describe the Dragon Slumber Shrine that Duque saw with his true eye, he could only think of one word: miracle. On the flying carpet, Duque and his party slowly approached the main entrance of the Dragon Slumber Shrine. On both sides of the main entrance stood a row of Dragonians. Dragonians had different colored skin, and apart from standing in human form, there was not a single part of their body that resembled a human. They had a terrifying physique that would make mortals feel oppressed just by standing in front of them. They were nearly 3 stories tall and 8 meters tall. They held a huge metal spear in one hand and a huge hammer that could be used as an iron felt by humans. They wore heavy armor that even the strongest warhorse could not carry, and stood majestically on both sides of the main entrance. Not only them, but there were also hundreds of young dragons that were guardians of the shrine hovering in the air on both sides of the main entrance. Every 100 young dragons formed a row, and there were 6 rows on both sides of the air in an inverted trapezoid shape. Be that as it may, even the burly Draconid or the young dragon guardian whose body was as massive as a temple were as insignificant as ants in front of the huge arched door that easily surpassed the edge of Duque's vision. According to the system elf's judgment, the width of the arched door was 512 meters. And the height was an unimaginable 1024 meters. This was the true giant door that the 5 dragon aspects had not felt crowded when they entered at the same time. Even by the standards of the Dragon Clan, this was undoubtedly a super door. If Duque were to walk, it would take him at least an hour to climb up the steps of the main entrance and step into the huge main entrance. Duque's lungs were filled with cold air, not because of the weather, but because of the shock. He didn't even have the time to look at the relief sculptures on the roof and the huge pillars. Just looking at the roof of the Dragon Slumber Shrine that seemed to cover the entire sky, even a transmigrator like him who had seen the world couldn't help but want to worship this miraculous building. This was not something that science could do. From this, it could be deduced how amazing the power of the titans of creation was. Anglodis is mighty. A string of draconic words echoed in the shrine. With the help of the translator, Duque was shocked to find that it was a giant dragon reciting Duque's deeds. From discovering the conspiracy of the Black Dragon King, to sneaking into the Emerald Dream to summon Isra, to summoning the 3 dragon aspects, to killing his way into grim battle to save Alexstrasza, and finally to discovering Nisario again and looking for an opportunity to set up an ambush. Finally, he helped the Dragon Clan eliminate this great traitor who had been at large for 10,000 years. When this dragon language was recited, it was filled with a sense of mystery and a wonderful rhythm. It sounded like an elegant poem with cadence, not a pale and straightforward narration. Duque could clearly feel that the gazes of the Draconids and Dragon Guardians had begun to change. There was doubt. There was disbelief. There was curiosity. But more than that, there was admiration. The Dragon Clan advocated force, but they also admired wisdom. If the 4 dragon kings could break the shackles of the demon's soul with their own strength, why couldn't they do it for the past 10,000 years? If the 4 dragon kings could easily kill the great traitor Nisario, why did they let him escape the last time? Through this introduction, the dragons began to understand that if there was any difference between the past and the present, it was because of the addition of Duke Marcus. These draconids and dragon guardians could not help but be in awe of Duque. After entering the huge shrine, they saw that the 4-colored dragons had surrounded the square in the middle of the shrine in all directions. There was no lack of ancient dragons that were more than 50 meters long. However, no matter how big they were, how sharp their teeth were, or how hot their dragon breath was. In this sacred ceremony to exterminate the traitor, only Duque, who was in the middle of the square, was the focus of all the dragon clan's vertical pupils. "You'd better pass the small test later," Krasus suddenly said without rhyme or reason. "Pass? Pass what?" Roar. First, a large number of red dragons opened their sharp, scarlet mouths wide at Duque, and let out waves of terrifying dragon roars that sounded like a tsunami. As long as a dragon roared, there would be dragon might. The fierce pressure of a creature at the top of the food chain immediately made it difficult for Duque to breathe. It was as if 2 boulders were pressing down on Duque's chest. Every time he inhaled, the boulders would take the opportunity to press inward, and every time he exhaled, he would have to face the counterattack of 100 kilograms of pressure. Roar. The bronze dragon roared. This time, Duque only felt that the pressure on his chest had increased by 100 kilograms. It was the kind of oppressive feeling that he could not bear even a little more pressure. However, the bronze dragon's roar had the feeling of pulling the weight of his past and future to the present all at once. That kind of pressure that seemed to be measured in tons almost made Duque spit out a mouthful of blood. Damn it! What are these big lizards trying to do? Almost subconsciously, Duque began to circulate his magic circuit, injecting magic into every muscle in his body, using magic to resist this increasingly strong pressure. Roar! 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 Suddenly, the blue dragons also roared. That strange roar seemed to be destroying the magic circuit in Duque's body with maximum power. If it were a weaker mage, their magic circuit would have been shattered instantly, and their magic would have gone berserk, causing their body to collapse and die. Fortunately, Duque had the help of the system elf. Under the dual active and passive control, Duque barely managed to fight the pressure from the dragon might to a standstill. Roar! The green dragon that had been silent also roared. Unlike the dragon might of other races, the green dragon's roar was not as domineering. It did not have the kind of momentum that could topple everything, but it had the exquisite and pervasive feeling of quicksilver spilling on the ground. The green dragon's roar was obviously eroding Duque's will. Chapter 631. Duque felt like he was in a trance. If his willpower had been divided into 2 levels before, his would still be his, and the system elf would still be the system elf. But now, what he felt was that the Firebird's might of the 4-colored dragons was like a hammer, pounding on the core of the subway. Hammering with willpower, while constantly hammering at Duque's will, it also led to the sublimation of Duque's spiritual domain. And sublimation only needed an opportunity. Duque was not a native of Azeroth. He had not experienced a childhood where he had to deal with wolves and murlocs even in the supposedly most peaceful elven forest. He was just a college animal who grew up in a big city. This lack of experience made him destined to have a slightly weaker psychological endurance in the face of danger and pressure in battle. For example, he was always easily hit by the warlock's fear. Duque also had his advantages. He was a transmigrator who remembered the general situation. The experience of looking at the overall situation as an outsider gave him a sense of superiority that the natives could never understand. This mentality of standing at the top of the ecological chain and looking down like a god was his trump card. Duque suddenly became angry, you. Me. This. Bit. Small. Dragon. Forget. Me. Root. Onion. Humph. I am Duque. I am Duque, who rose from nothing to become a hero of the Alliance and sat in the position of commander. I am Duque, who killed hundreds of thousands of orcs, killed so many chiefs, made use of Ghoul Dan to become rich, and killed Nethario, the Wing of Death. I am Duque, who is determined to use Ragnaros, the King of Flames, as a lighter, and break and purify the Lich King's Frostmourne to use as an air conditioner in the future. The one and only Duque in the world. You little dragons who are only worthy of EXP actually dare to shout at me? Laugh. Words. Dragons might, right? Then don't blame me for being rude. System Elf, attack. Humph. It was a seemingly ordinary snort, but in the ears of the dragon race, it had a different meaning. The magic circuits in Duque's body were already a little chaotic, and the elements in the air seemed to have sensed Duque's aura and suddenly trembled. In the blink of an eye, the elements in the air appeared in 4 different colors and turned into 4 magic blades that could be seen by the naked eye. They slashed in all directions like lightning. At the same time, the magical elements that contained some kind of mysterious power suddenly flashed. Like waves stacking on top of each other, they rose to an even higher peak, bursting with endless power. Ancient Dragon Might. When the 4 types of magic radiance that corresponded to the 4-color dragon race slashed down, the young dragons were immediately scared out of their wits. Never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined that a mere human like Duque would actually be able to release an awe-inspiring might that rivaled that of an ancient colossal dragon. When the magic blade slashed down, they only felt one thing: death. Oh. The 3 dragon kings on the highest floor of the dragon slumber godly palace looked surprised at the same time. If it were the dragon ambassadors beside Duque, they would be horrified. The magic blade that Duque counterattacked was too fast. It was so fast that it almost flashed by, and the strange and mysterious power contained within it even disappeared in an instant. However, in the eyes of these young dragons and dragonians, they saw a completely different scene. When the light that corresponded to their race's skin color slashed down, blood immediately gushed out of their necks. Be it dragon scales, dragon skin, or even the hardest dragon bones that could block most sharp weapons in the world, they were all slashed in half. Their heads shot up into the sky, and their bodies slumped to the ground. The blood of the dragon stained the sacred dragon slumber. I'm dead? Countless dragons' necks suddenly shrunk, and countless dragonians retreated in shock, touching their still intact necks. Was that an illusion? Although the blade radiance that was made of this aura only flashed for a moment, it was enough to scare every dragon out of their wits. In an instant, the entire dragon slumber godly palace trembled, and it was the reflection of the dragons retreating. How could there be such a terrifying person who made tens of thousands of dragonians and thousands of young dragons feel the illusion of being killed with just his aura? Just recalling that feeling made them feel cold and weak all over? Every dragon and dragonian asked themselves, is this Duke Marcus telling us that he can kill us if he wants to? At this moment, seeing the exaggerated scene of tens of thousands of dragons bowing down, Krasus and the 3 dragon ambassadors beside Duque showed expressions of awe. How breathtaking! Congratulations! Congratulations! For humans, it's perfect. Duque was a little confused. I pass, right? Then, what is this? This is something we've all experienced. Of course, it's not as perfect as yours. You'll know after the ceremony. Krasus continued to whet Duque's appetite. Okay, you can now go to the highest floor to watch the ceremony. Duque was speechless. Of course, he knew that the dragon slumbered godly palace was also divided into upper, middle, and lower floors, but he didn't know that these big lizards were so cunning. They asked him to watch the ceremony, but didn't say which floor he would go to. It was still that fiery red flying carpet, and Duque and the others were lifted out of the godly palace again, spiraling toward the highest floor of the godly palace. Finally, at the highest floor, Duque saw the 3 dragon kings in human form. Alexstrasza was the first to greet him. Good job. Maligos was a little dissatisfied. This human kid secretly learned the dragon soul method. Nozdormu was disdainful. So what? Duque smiled bitterly. Right. So what? With the help of the platinum disc in his hand, which was a fragment of the dragon soul, he used the system to analyze part of the composition principle, and even the formula similar to Firebird. However, the power of the magic simulation of the dragon's roar was limited. After all, he was not a real dragon aspect and did not have a real dragon soul. Naturally, it was impossible for him to have the kind of terrifying power that could make thousands of dragons bow to him. At best, the power he exuded was similar to that of a 10,000-year-old dragon. It was okay to scare the small fry, but it was completely ineffective against a dragon of crisis level. The Red Dragon Queen puffed out her chest proudly. In any case, Duque, the human hero who saved me from the dark prison, has proven his courage. He is qualified to stand here and watch the end of Nesario. End? Wasn't Nesario dead? Just as Duque was a little puzzled, the remains of Nesario suddenly appeared in the void in the middle of the highest floor of the godly palace, which was like a garden pavilion, completely open and supported by several huge stone pillars. Chapter 632. The golden light of dawn shone into the highest level of the temple, illuminating the surroundings with a golden hue. However, the golden light could not penetrate the dark and special remains in the middle of the temple. The remaining dark aura was like a remnant bonfire, half extinguished, still struggling in an attempt to pollute the light in this sacred place with the weak power of darkness. The remains that had lost their life for a full week were not floating quietly in mid-air. They seemed to be struggling. There was still a faint, constantly churning layer of black aura around the remains. At this time, on every pillar on the highest level of the temple, an illusory golden light suddenly opened out of thin air. Duque could clearly feel the countless gazes from the few golden eyes that were focused on him. This was the dragon race's mage eye. Not every dragon or dragonman was qualified to watch the ceremony at the highest level of the temple. In this way, they quietly watched the end of Neltharion. Under the watchful eyes of all the dragon descendants, a sphere shining with a strange light appeared outside Nesario's remains that were suspended in mid-air at the highest level. Like a horizontal line on the horizon, it divided the entire sphere into two. The upper half was gold that refracted the light of dawn, and the lower half was black like the distant starry sky. Whether it was the warm and genial golden light above or the deathly still black below, they both gave people the feeling that these two kinds of light represented the world. Duque suddenly realized that the line was the boundary between life and death. A few cracks soon appeared on the sphere, and from time to time, small fragments peeled off the sphere with a slight tremor and dissipated into the air. The vibration of Nesario's remains suddenly became more intense, and a dragon's roar filled with endless hatred and resentment suddenly shook the entire temple. The voice of Nesario's soul actually sounded in the entire temple. Roar, no one can judge me, I am the supreme king of the dragon race. I am the purifier of the world. I am the only ruler of the new world. The dragon's remains floating in mid-air changed with the burst of sound waves. The separated dragon head and the ragged broken neck kept colliding, as if trying to recombine. The huge black dragon head seemed to want to return to its original position, but no matter how hard it tried, it could not do so. Either the broken spine stabbed into the dragon's chin, or the dragon head rested on the shoulder next to its neck. Nesario seemed to be in great pain. He screamed, and his body rolled. His dragon wings opened their hooked claws, as if he wanted to grab his head and make his body whole again. He was so furious that he kept cursing. He cursed the names of every dragon king, cursed Duque who plotted against him, cursed the Dragon Slumber Shrine, and even cursed all living beings in the world. For a moment, Duque almost suspected that Nesario was really coming back to life. When he glanced at the calm expressions of the three Dragon Kings, Duque also entered into spectator mode. Sure enough, Alexstrasza could no longer bear to watch the ugliness of Nesario's remnant soul. Bathed in the morning light, she seemed to have transformed into the sun. It was clearly a cold snort, but it made people feel that there was a gorgeous and blazing feeling in the voice. Enough. You're an evil degenerate who betrayed the entire dragon race and went against our eternal mission. It seems that if we leave you alone, even if you become a filthy ghost dragon or a corpse dragon, you will continue to harm this world. In the face of Alexstrasza's roar, Nesario's remnant soul still ignored her. So what if I am? I'm not convinced. Even if I fall into the deepest depths of hell, I will still take revenge on you hypocrites in my own way, yes. That's right. I'm supposed to be the victor here. As long as I get your egg, I can create more new species of dragons. I can use my evil art to purify this world that has been occupied by the inferior races. The Red Dragon Queen was momentarily speechless. Nesario was indeed dead, but his soul had not completely dissipated. One of the important reasons why this dragon ceremony was held was to vent her anger and correct the views of the dragons and their descendants. Now that Nesario was so stubborn, even though he was dead and only half of his soul was left, she could certainly destroy this traitorous Black Dragon King just like that. But in that case, the effect of preaching would be greatly reduced. Maligos suddenly said, "Hold the ceremony. I've scolded him for 7 days and 7 nights, but he has no regrets." Nozdormu said, "I have no objections." But Alexstrasza wasn't willing. The traitor that she had fought against for 10,000 years was finally brought to justice, but this guy still looked like a spiritual warrior even in death. How could she vent her anger like this? How could the millions of dragon descendants vent their anger? Was this the result of fighting against the Black Dragon army for 10,000 years? No. Absolutely not. At this time, the Red Dragon Queen suddenly thought of Duque. Yes, that kid has the most ideas. Duque was speechless when the Red Dragon Queen suddenly sent him a telepathic message. Yo, Duque, if you can help make that mad dragon confess or make a fool of himself, I'll owe you another big favor. It's a deal. Seeing that Duque agreed so readily, Alexstrasza really regretted it a little. Did she promise too easily? However, there were so many dragon descendants watching. If she destroyed Nesario's soul just like that, there might be more betrayals in the future. The queen gritted her teeth and accepted it. Duque said slowly, "Oh, Nesario, I can't help but pity you." Nesario's remnant soul laughed out loud. "Pity me? Huh. I'm the Supreme One. Why should I let you pity me?" Duque shook his head and said, "Because you don't have anything. Even the idea of purifying the world and becoming the only master of Azeroth was brainwashed by the ancient god En-Zoth. You're just a pitiful wretch who doesn't even have self-will." Nesario cursed, "Bullsh**t. You still don't want to admit it? That's the effect of the whispers of the ancient gods." Nesario insisted, "There's absolutely no such thing." "Well, as long as you're willing to do a small experiment in front of everyone, as long as you successfully pass this experiment, I'll let you go," Duque said. The other 2 dragon kings were indignant. If they really let Nesario run out and turn into a zombie dragon, he would definitely be a super disaster. For a moment, they wanted to object. However, the approval of the 2 female dragon kings suddenly came from the sky. "Leave it to Duque." "Okay." Nesario agreed. "The experiment is very simple. As long as you repeat the sentence, 'I don't have a brain,' 1,000 times, then I'll ask you a question. If you can answer it correctly, you'll pass." "So, I don't have a brain. I don't have a brain. I don't have a brain. The entire temple echoed with Nisario's brainwashing voice. The moment he repeated it 1,000 times, Duque suddenly shouted, Nisario, do you have a brain? Nisario replied without hesitation, I don't have a brain. Pfft! Thousands of giant dragons spat out dragon breath. Chapter 633. If it was human saliva, it would at most cause some pollution. The dragon breath of the dragon race itself had considerable lethality. Even if it was incomplete, so many breaths still caused a lot of damage. Of course, most of the dragons had thick skin and flesh. Compared to that small injury, the comical performance of the Wing of Death, Nisario, shocked the dragons even more. It was foreseeable that he would be the laughing-stock of the dragon race for the next 1,000 years. Alexstrasza rolled her eyes. She had originally hoped for a just trial that would make all the dragons take warning. Who knew that Nisario's remnant soul would be so stubborn and not feel the slightest bit guilty? This made the four-colored dragons, who were bent on revenge and wanted to give this rebellious dragon king the harshest punishment, feel as if they had punched thin air. All right, leave it to Duque. Duque finally solved the problem. However, it was not in the form that the dragon aspects wanted. Nisario's remnant soul came to its senses. Duque. You tricked me. No, of course I have a brain. I decided to dominate this world with my own will. Yes, yes, yes. Anyone who shouts I am the ruler of the world 1,000 times will feel like a god for a moment, Duque replied as if he was in a bad mood. This immediately aroused the laughter of countless dragons below. Many of the temple guardian dragons that were originally hovering in mid-air laughed until their stomachs hurt, and almost fell from mid-air. Thousands of dragons revealed their sharp fangs and giggled. The scene was truly terrifying. Fortunately, Duque did not see it. Alexstrasza also had a hard time holding it in. She kept telling herself, I must not laugh at a time like this. I am the great Nisario, my wisdom is the highest. Didn't you see that I fooled you fools for 10,000 years? The soul wrapped around the black dragon corpse roared. These words made all four of the giant dragons of four colors uncomfortable. Unexpectedly, Duque immediately added a fatal blow. Yes, 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 you are the wisest Nisario. After the brain eater opened your skull, it did not care about you at all. Instead, the dung beetle's eyes lit up when it saw what was in your skull. Alexstrasza, Nozdormu, Maligos, Isra, who was far away in the Emerald Dream but was paying attention to what was happening, was speechless. After 3 seconds of dead silence, the dragon with the lowest sense of humor was the first to collapse, bursting into laughter. Then came the second one, the third one. The dragon race's grand ceremony turned into a comedy show. The Red Dragon Queen had a love-hate relationship with Duque. She liked Duque for saving the day, but she also hated him for ruining the atmosphere. She glared fiercely at Duque, then sighed. Nisario, you pathetic fellow. You've been carrying on a false will and wreaking havoc in the world of Azeroth for 10,000 years. This was the misfortune and sorrow of the Dragon Clan. However, all the suffering, all the betrayals, will come to an end today. The 3 human-shaped dragons occupied the east, south, and west directions, while Isra's human-shaped virtual image suddenly appeared in the north. The 4 dragon kings stretched out their right hands at the same time and pressed in the void. 4 giant virtual dragon claws of different colors appeared on the highest floor of the Dragon Sleep Temple. The 4 dragon claws mercilessly slashed down, and there was immediately an incredible force in the Dragon Sleep Temple that resonated with it. This force was so vast and shocking that when it approached Nisario's remains and remnant soul, ripples appeared in the surrounding space. Roar! The seemingly insignificant force made Wings of Death let out a painful howl. The 4 dragon kings were unmoved. No, it should be said that there was a faint sense of pleasure in their hearts. As the virtual dragon claws fell, the ball of light that wrapped around Nesario suddenly turned into countless lifelike little dragons the size of a human arm. However, these tiny wyverns were like real dragons as they opened their mouths to bite Nesario, slapping him with their claws and whipping him with their tails. Duque finally saw that every blow from these little dragons weakened Nesario's existence in this world. Duque's heart shuddered. The dragons were going to completely wipe out Nesario's existence. Even if the Lich King was right next to him, it would be impossible for him to be resurrected into a bone dragon due to the erasure of his body and soul. From the past to the present, to the near future, there would not be any remnant soul or relics of Nesario that would be passed down. The voice of Nesario's remnant soul suddenly changed from shock and anger to a low, pleading whine. He was like a giant dragon that only existed on a blackboard and was being erased bit by bit. The dragons were silent. Every dragon and every dragon descendant looked at this scene with complicated emotions. When the last piece of darkness that belonged to Nesario disappeared from the vision of all existences, the dragon sleep temple suddenly shook violently. Then, in less than 3 seconds, a dragon head that looked exactly like Nesario's appeared at the highest point of the temple. It was also Nesario's head, but its essence and soul were completely different. That was purely a symbol of warning to the dragons. All of a sudden, thousands of giant dragons began to raise their heads and roar at the sky. The roar contained a dragon language song. In other words, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. There was a cause and effect. The end of the path of rebellion was destruction. With the dragon's roar, the ritual ended. Duque had always had a question about these complicated rituals of the dragons. I'm here to take the prize, why are you wasting so much of my time? However, when Alexstrasza put a pin on Duque's chest under the witness of the other 3 dragon kings, Duque's expression suddenly changed. This is, congratulations, Guardian Duke Marcus. Yes. That's right. The same line of words was marked in the system prompt. After the unanimous agreement of the 4 color dragons of the Dragon Sleep Temple, the dragons have determined that you have inherited the mantle of Mediv and become the Guardian of Azeroth, temporary. Although you are a temporary worker, due to your outstanding performance in the dragon ceremony, you have obtained above-average military power. As long as the target is not a native of Azeroth, or is identified as an enemy by the Dragon Sleep Temple, you can summon the dragon army of the Dragon Sleep Temple to fight for you unconditionally at any time and on any occasion. According to your current reputation in the Dragon Slumber Godly Shrine, you can summon 1 dragon squad at a time, including 1 10,000-year-old giant dragon, 5,000-year-old dragons, 3 dragonoid elite captains, and 500 dragonoid elite guards. Before Duque could finish being happy, Alexstrasza suddenly said, Duque, I actually received a message. There are demons preparing to attack your Karazhan. F***CK. Chapter 634. Without the Queen's reminder, Duque would not have realized that his nest was not only unstable, it was on fire. Previously, he had temporarily left Karazhan. One reason was that Duque did not have enough strength to clean up Karazhan, and the other was that Stormwind City was about to be destroyed. If Duque did not come out, Lang would die in Stormwind City. Did Duque not value Karazhan? Of course not. Duque did not care about his fiefdom. He could lose the Watchtower, the Reedridge Mountain, and the Elven Forest, but he could not give up Karazhan. At the start of the Third War of the Dark Portal, what enemies would appear on the Azeroth continent? Undead that had come back from the dead, wailing banshees and gargoyles that filled the sky, lava hounds that were 3 stories tall, fire elementals that were as tall as a small mountain. These terrifying existences that transcended the mortal world could not be dealt with by simple swords. The most reliable thing that Duque had was his magic. The path to the Dalajan had been blocked. The only thing he could rely on was Karazhan. Now that he suddenly heard that Karazhan was in danger, it would be strange if Duque was not excited. Seeing Duke almost jump up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, Alexstrasza finally felt a sense of satisfaction at having turned the tables. Do you know who it is? Seeing Duke's nervous look, the queen's nose was almost up to the sky. She had a look of "beg me. If you beg me, I'll tell you." Look. Duke clenched his teeth and turned around. Let's go. Alexstrasza was anxious. She did not care about the other 3 dragon kings watching, and put a hand on Duke's shoulder. Brat, let's talk. Suddenly, space twisted at a high speed, and the scenery in front of him blurred. In that moment, Duke found himself in a circular pavilion hanging on the east side of the Dragon Sleep Temple. It was not accurate to say that it was a pavilion. It should be said that this seemed like a pavilion, but it was actually a small subspace attached to the Dragonbone Wastelands. It looked like the scenery of the Dragonbone Wastelands, but in reality, it was impossible to get out of the pavilion by walking to it. Alexstrasza put her hands on her hips and puffed out her cheeks. I was just teasing you. Is it worth losing your temper? Duke, if the Dragon Sleeping Temple is attacked, will you feel at ease? The queen had to think that Duke was right. Karazhan is safe for the time being. Then I have to rush back to prepare. No, no, no. I think it's better if you prepare here. Why? The queen tilted her head. Her yellow vertical pupils had a strange color to them. She strode forward and said, "Let me examine your body and magic circuits." Huh? Without any hesitation, the queen made her move. There was no boundary between a woman and a man at all. A pair of powerful palms touched him just like that. Duke shuddered. Any mortal would not be unresponsive when touched by a pair of hands with draconic might. It was the fear of a giant dragon sharpening its claws next to one's ear. It was as if the big sister of the dragon race and the boss of the dragon race would be disassembled into parts if she accidentally shook her hand. A fragile body. But it's strange. You've also experienced many battles, but there are no internal injuries. The shaping of the magic circuits is also very perfect. The queen frowned. I don't know if I should give you this advice, but after seeing your perfect use of the magic circuits, I think, what do you think? You can try asking Malygos for Light of the Stars and Moon. Light of the Stars and Moon? The King of Magic controls the prototypes of all magic models in this world, and Light of the Stars and Moon can allow a Morning Star Wizard to quickly grow into a Radiant Moon Wizard in a short period of time. As long as you have enough control over the magic circuits, there will be no side effects. However, Light of the Stars and Moon does not come without a price. Duque suddenly grabbed Alexstrasza's shoulder. Although the queen's arm was very flexible and felt good, Duque did not care about it at all. What's the price? The queen's expression became very solemn. Malygos was given the duty of guarding all magic in the world of Azeroth by the Titans, so he thinks that he is the master of magic in Azeroth. For nearly 1,000 years, he has been very dissatisfied with the wanton abuse of magic by humans and the High Elves. Duque was non-committal. If there's a price you need to pay for Light of the Stars and Moon, it's Malygos' hatred. He believes that only a perfect creature like the dragon race is qualified to obtain Light of the Stars and Moon. If you force it, he will probably give it to you, but he will immediately hate you. This is enough to cancel out all the good feelings he has for you, and it will put your path of magic in great danger. The queen did not even notice the sarcastic smile on the corner of Duque's mouth. At the end of the day, she did not know why, but she wanted Duque to owe her a favor, or to return part of the favor. She knew very well that if she was willing to pay one of her dragon eggs for Duque, Malygos's expression would definitely be much better. However, things seemed to be developing in a direction she did not expect. Can Malygos burn my magic circuit from thousands of miles away? Of course not, but, can he hide in his lair and forbid me from using any magic from thousands of miles away? No, but that, if he hates me, will it affect your or the Sleeping Dragon Temple's impression of me? Of course not, but, then that's enough. I'll go find Malygos right now. Duque's attitude that everything was okay almost angered Alexstrasza to death. That was Malygos, the king of magic. Ordinary people would already tremble at the mention of his name, and you actually don't care about offending an ancient dragon guardian? Don't even mention the bear's heart and leopard's gull. Duque, are you trying to defy the heavens? Seeing that Duque was really going to find Malygos, Alexstrasza laughed angrily. Hey, Duque. You really don't need me to help you? For my sake, at least Malygos won't do anything to you. If you go and negotiate on your own, you'll become a mortal enemy. In the future, if Malygos doesn't like you and hunts you down, I won't care. Duque waved his hand. Don't worry, I don't care about a mere Malygos. In any case, that guy would be an idiot who would enter a dungeon and be killed by the players like a boss. Duque's next words were, in the entire dragon race, the only one I care about is you, Alexstrasza. In the future. You're the only one left of the 5 guardian dragons. I'd be stupid to farm the reputation of those who are destined to kneel. He did not realize at all that his words had a serious meaning. When the Red Dragon Queen heard this, there was a special emotional overtone. For a moment, the queen froze in place. Chapter 635. Duque had underestimated the queen's love for her eggs. First of all, a rough man was destined to be unable to understand a woman's feelings. Even before transmigrating, not many women were willing to donate their eggs. Alexstrasza was not only a female dragon, but also a dragon queen with a god-level life ability. Her dragon eggs could even make the scarce and nearly extinct blue dragons flourish again. One could only imagine how precious such a dragon egg was. In the end, Alexstrasza told a small lie. If she used her dragon egg to exchange for it, not only could she avoid Malygos' wrath, but she could also exchange for a higher level, Breaking Dawn fire. As the name suggested, this meant that in addition to advancing to a Radiant Moon Mage, Duque could also lay the foundation for advancing to a Breaking Dawn Mage. In the world of magic, nothing could be achieved in a single leap, unless you had a god of magic as a parent. For example, Medivh had a guardian mother, Aegwynn. Apart from Medivh, which mage did not have stars in their eyes? They would either be like Antonidas until they had one foot in the coffin, or they would be like Khadgar in the original world, using countless near-death experiences in exchange for power. Even now, this opportunity to exchange for Starfire was obtained by Duque at the cost of facing one of the strongest and evilest existences in the world, Nesario. The queen never expected, no, she was overthinking things. She thought that Duque was giving up the chance to step into the Breaking Dawn realm in order to protect her precious dragon egg. She couldn't help but have a good impression of him rise. Because of his ignorance, Duque was very calm. Under Alexstrasza's gaze, he actually went to look for Malygos. At the highest level of the Wyrmrest Shrine, Issarazwil had already retreated. Nozdormu was using the power of time to rebuild Nesario's ashes into a model of Nesario's remains. Only Malygos had his eyes squinted as if he was pretending to sleep. In fact, he had a premonition that Duque would come to him for a reward. "You're here." Malygos seemed to be struggling to keep his eyelids open. "I'm here." Duque was indifferent. "Come." "Sure." A blue wave enveloped the man and the dragon, and in the blink of an eye, Duque found himself in another pavilion hanging outside the dragon's slumber shrine. Evidently, the 5 dragon aspects each had their own independent space in the Wyrmrest Shrine. The space of Malygos, the king of magic, seemed a little different. If Alexstrasza had deliberately shrunk her space into a small room so that Duque wouldn't feel uncomfortable, then Malygos was just showing Duque the original space. It was a huge space with a diameter of at least 10 kilometers. Duque was on a lone island in the middle of the Azure Ocean. There was nothing around him except seawater. In the sky, there seemed to be a supreme existence of divine might. The thick white clouds rolled and surged, making it impossible to see what was above the clouds. Somehow, he felt that there was a mysterious existence there that could destroy everything in the world. Its nobility and greatness were above everything else in the world of Azeroth. That was how it should be, Duque replied with a poker face and dead fish eyes. Ah! What an imposing manner. However, all that was left was the imposing manner. Alexstrasza, who had the most authority in the Wyrmrest Shrine, was protecting me. Did you dare to eat me? Duque looked up at the sky with such a terrible expression, and thought to himself, ah, the ancients said that only idiots like to stand at the highest point and wait to be struck by lightning. The ancients were not lying to me. Malygos was very upset. It was not the first time he had seen Duque, but it was the only time he had looked Duque in the eye. He had never believed in humans, or rather, he was suspicious and even hostile to all races other than dragons. The first time Duque had approached him through Isra in order to fight against Nesario, it was because of the situation. It was a coincidence that Duque had gone through so much to rescue Alexstrasza. Anyway, it was still the four of them who had to fight against the Wing of Death. Duque had magically discovered that Nesario had disguised himself as a human and sneaked into the Lordaeron palace. Duque had used him in turn to lure the four of them to finally eliminate Nesario, and the credit was still due to the four of them. Without the other Dragon Kings, it would have been impossible to kill the rebellious Black Dragon King. Anyway, in Malygos's eyes, creatures other than dragons were always secondary. Duque had already obtained a transcendent position in the Wyrmrest Shrine without doing any real work at all. Seeing that he had finally killed his great enemy and avenged his spouse after 10,000 years, Malygos did not mind giving this little human a little gift. However, Duque's neither humble nor arrogant behavior made him very upset. Humph! A cold snort sounded like a thunderclap from the 9 heavens. Duque was still the combination of dead fish eyes and a poker face. Is this the attitude you have when begging the great king of magic to bestow a reward? With this sentence, Duque sentenced Malygos to death. You want me to work for you? You've taken your revenge and vented your anger, and you still have the nerve to make things difficult for me? You don't want to give me a reward, right? Hee hee. When you become a boss later, I'll get rid of you and take it myself. Duque cursed in his heart while expressing his attitude. Hee hee, you can choose not to give it. If not, then I'll leave first. Can you please open a spatial door? Duque's casual attitude made Malygos even more angry. Insignificant human. Recognize your identity. In front of my power, you are nothing. The clouds were boiling fiercely, as if the wrath of the heavens would fall in the next moment. The rage of the Dragon King was not a joke. The terrifying aura that flowed out of Malygos's shrine room made the giant dragons that had yet to disperse in the shrine tremble. What the hell, who had angered the Dragon King Malygos? Alexstrasza could not help but yell across the void, "Hey! Malygos, what the hell are you doing? Why are you yelling at my savior?" Malygos' anger subsided a little. After all, this was the Dragon Slumber Shrine, and he was still very afraid of Alexstrasza, who had recovered her strength. I'm just teaching a human how to be polite to dragons. What the hell are you doing? Duque is an honored guest of our Dragon Slumber Shrine. We invited him to witness the ceremony today. We agreed to let him take over as a guardian, and you have a part in it. What's wrong with you all of a sudden? Malygos did not speak. Only Duque knew that in the end, it was because his strength was too low. So low that even if he asked for a reasonable reward, it would be seen as a charity. In the past 800 years, when had the previous guardians, Aegwynn and Medivh, been bullied? It was easy for a demigod to make other existences forget their original identity and instinctively respect them. Chapter 636. Come to think of it, Duque was a mere morning star mage, but he had managed to kill the greatest nightmare of the dragons in 10,000 years, the demigod Nisario. It would be unreasonable for the other dragons not to be jealous. Was there anything more heaven-defying than Duque's feat in this world? Of course, there was a deeper reason. Malygos had not finished venting his anger. He had once been the strongest of the 5 dragon aspects, but his wife, child, and almost all his subordinates had died in one go. He had been a single dog, no, a single dragon for 10,000 years. He had finally managed to kill his enemy, but not only was the enemy unrepentant, the one who had stolen his limelight was a lowly race with no ability that he looked down upon. Rationally, Malygos knew that he should be grateful to Duque. When it came to love, he couldn't control his temper. He was a little crazy, but his madness was more directed at Nisario and the Black Dragon army. But he had nowhere to vent his anger. He could not attack his own people. Duque, who had appeared in front of him, felt like he had been implicated. After slightly intimidating Malygos, Alexstrasza quickly smoothed things over and sent a secret message to Duque. Sorry, Duque, he wasn't like this before. He used to be very happy and cheerful, and did not mind spreading magic to other races. It's just that after his spouse died. Alexstrasza quickly said a lot of things, all of which were ignored by Duque. What made Duque's mind wander was something else. That was the course of history. Duque did not know if he could defend against Zul's next attack. If he could, then it was likely that there would not be a cross-world expedition against Draenor. However, regardless of whether there would be an expedition or not, the Burning Legion's plot against Azeroth would not be extinguished. The third war at the Dark Portal was bound to come. If the third battle of the Dark Portal had anything to do with Malygos, it would have to do with a lot. In the third war, it was easy to associate it with the undead army of the Calamity Army. However, without the Ice Dragon Army, which was the pinnacle of the undead army, no matter how many skeletons and zombies the humans turned into, they would be nothing in the face of true extraordinary power. It was just that there were too many of them, and it was more troublesome. Yes, it was just that troublesome. However, with the Ice Dragon Army, it would directly change from quantity to quality. Where did the Ice Dragon Army of the undead come from? Wasn't it the Blue Dragon Army that was killed in of Nisario's betrayal? The leader of the Ice Dragon Army, Sindagosa, was definitely one of the best generals under the Lich King. Who was Sindagosa? Was there a need to ask? It was the dead wife of Malygos, the King of Magic. Duque came back to his senses just in time to hear Alexstrasza's pleading tone. Duque, no, Malygos's attitude isn't good, but he's still a good person, and he's ready to resume his duties as the dragon aspect. Why don't you give in to him this time and I'll owe you a small favor? All right. Alexstrasza breathed a sigh of relief when Duque agreed. Just now, Duque refused to answer no matter what. She thought that Duque was going to have a heaven and earth collision with Malygos in the Dragon Slumber Temple. She didn't think that Duque would win, but since both sides were on the same side, she really didn't want them to have a conflict. Just then, Malygos said, "All right, for Alexstrasza's sake, I won't argue with you about your attitude. I know you want the power of magic, so show me your magic skills, mortal. If you can satisfy me, I'll let you instantly become a Radiant Moon Wizard." What's wrong with that? Duque's back suddenly straightened, and the corner of his mouth hooked up into a mysterious arc. If one was familiar enough with Duque, they would know who Duque was going to trap again. Fortunately, Duque let Malygos go this time for the sake of the Red Dragon Queen. Duque had too many ways to force this big blue clown into a dead end. For example, when Malygos gave up monitoring the magic in the world during his mental disorder, Kuel Salis and the Dalajan's dark experiments. What steel refiner, what forbidden human body refinement technique, what biochemical experiment that could poison all living creatures within 1,000 miles, once Malygos found out about these things, the old blue dragon would go crazy. There was no need for the Scourge army. He could kill these two holy lands of magic by himself. Of course, Alexstrasza didn't know that Duque had so many bad ideas in his stomach, but she was a woman with amazing intuition. She suddenly realized that Duque really had a way to kill Malygos like he killed Nesario. Feeling that Duque had finally let go of the idea in his heart, the queen's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Duque thought to himself, "All right, seeing that your wife is dead, it's understandable. I also want to dig a hole for that fool. I'll bear with it." Duque suddenly raised his head and stared at Malygos in the sky. There was still a mysterious smile on his lips. "Do you want to see my magic skills?" "Sure. Let me show you the right path." Duque raised his hand. For a moment, Malygos almost wanted to smash Duque's face with magic bombs. But when Malygos saw clearly what Duque had conjured with magic power, he fell silent. Duque injected his distant memories into the system. It was a scene from the Battle of the Frozen Crown in the game. It was a memory of Sindagosa from the gorgeous cutscenes. Like an irresponsible visionary, Duque gave the system elf a mission: "I want to restore a magic construct called Sindagosa that will convince Malygos." Then, the system elf perfectly injected bones, tendons, blood, and flesh into Duque's fantasy. In the void, as the magic power in the magic circuit in Duque's body was rapidly consumed, the illusion of a huge bone dragon appeared in Malygos' eyes. At first, the illusion of the bone dragon looked like a lizard skeleton at the level of a primary school student's drawing. However, it quickly turned from a chaotic mess into a specimen with its bones clearly visible. Every bump on his skin. Every cartilage that connected each other. The proportions of every bone. At this time, Malygos couldn't help but tremble slightly. This wasn't the end. If what happened before was just a conceptual reorganization of the biological specimen, then what happened next was a pure rebirth of the concept of magic. The huge bone dragon illusion in Duque's hand, which had become 10 meters long, had begun to have the aura of a magic circuit. One by one, new magic circuits were being constructed in this phantom bone dragon. Chapter 637. Duque could actually construct a new magic circuit in an illusion that he had created out of thin air? Many dragon geniuses had trouble constructing a good magic circuit in the body that they were most familiar with, not to mention constructing a magic circuit in an illusion that they were not even familiar with. And from the looks of it, Duque was not making it up. This was because there was an aura that Malygos was extremely familiar with flowing in the newly born magic circuit. It was the aura of Sindagosa's most specialized frost magic circuit. How could you possibly know what Sindagosa was good at? In the independent space of the temple, the rolling clouds in the sky had already solidified. Similarly, the expression of Malygos, who had poked his head out of the clouds, had also solidified. Neltharion's betrayal 10,000 years ago was the greatest shame of the dragons of Azeroth. Even in the records of the dragons, only the names and numbers of the dead were recorded. Other than those ancient dragons that could be counted, no one would know anything about the Blue Dragon Queen. Malygos had just been to the natural mausoleum of his spouse, and there were no traces of anyone touching it at all. Then how did Duque know that Sindagosa was a frost dragon, and not an all-elemental dragon like him? Did Alexstrasza tell Duque? Duque's performance continued. Not only did the body of the bone dragon, which was almost identical to Sindagosa, begin to be surrounded by magic circuits, but white muscles could also be seen growing on the white bones, which were becoming thicker and thicker. Every layer of flesh and blood covered the dragon's body would have a corresponding bloodline and magic circuit. The mana in Duque's body continued to be consumed, but with the help of the system elf, not even the slightest bit of mana was wasted. Every bit of mana was used to create the illusory Sindagosa. This move of Duque's was almost a materialization of his imagination. Under his control, the body of the blue dragon continued to grow, becoming more than 50 meters long. When he finished constructing the flesh and blood, a layer of unbelievably beautiful blue dragon skin and scales began to cover the flesh and blood. At the same time, smaller and finer branches of magic circuits were also being laid down. Seeing this, Malygos's heart skipped a beat. Humans and high elves were very superficial in the use of magic. It was already impressive that they were able to construct a few large magic cycles in their bodies and form a circuit. They could not care about the minor details at all. Not to mention control, they might not even be able to sense it on their own. However, they did not know that this level of control was necessary for a powerful spellcaster. How could a main circuit with 36 branches of the same thickness compare with a main circuit with 108 branches of the same thickness? It was not just the number and thickness of the branches, but also whether or not they could build a filter to filter out the impurities in the circuit, and how to circulate the pure magic power and discharge the impurities. Everything was necessary for a real senior rank sorcerer. Be it humans or elves, those radiant moon mages had actually done all of this intentionally or unintentionally. Only then did they have the perfect magic circuit that countless mages envied and hated. That was why Malygos was inexplicably surprised. How could Duque use such low mana to perform micro-operations that even those with abundant mana couldn't do? Soon, Malygos could not be bothered to look at all this. Looking at this illusory blue dragon that had the same appearance as his former spouse, Malygos could not help but mutter his spouse's name, Sindagosa. The illusion in front of him was so realistic, and the mana flowing in the illusion was so familiar and nostalgic. He almost thought that his spouse, who had slept for 10,000 years, had awakened and obtained a new life. Normally, Malygos would have taken it as Duke's blasphemy against his mate. But when he asked Duque to display his talent in magic, he saw his former spouse. Malygos had mixed feelings. There were no words. Naturally, there was no familiar voice or smile. Even so, Malygos still felt that a part of his heart that had been missing for 10,000 years had been mended and healed. He suddenly realized that Duque seemed to have played a more important role in this revenge plan than he had imagined. He also suddenly realized that this insignificant human that he had always ignored and looked down on had some kind of fine control of magic that even he could not compare to. Malygos let out a long sigh. Duque stopped his mana output, and the illusory Sindagosa's movements stiffened. Malygos felt as if he had been struck by a whip, pulling him back from his memories to reality. That's right. This was not his spouse after all. Enough, make it disappear, Malygos said calmly. Duque rubbed his hand, and Sindagosa disappeared from the void. Malygos' aggressive aura was gone, but he was still stubborn. I agreed to let you be the acting guardian, so naturally, I recognized your strength. From the moment Nesario was killed, I didn't treat you as an ordinary human. But as a guardian, even if you're a proxy, your strength is too unsightly. Take this thing and get lost. Don't be an eyesore. With that, he flapped his dragon wings, and a meteor-like bright object descended from the sky. Whoosh! With a sharp sound of breaking wind, it was clearly going to smash Duque's head open, but the moment Duque dodged, it was fixed at a place less than 3 centimeters in front of Duque's eyebrows. F***ck. You did it on purpose. Malygos returned a contemptuous look. Yes. I did it on purpose. Duque, fine, you win. I've earned my moral integrity by showing off my muscles. Oh, it's strength. Why not? Duque grabbed the light of the stars and moon that was floating in front of his eyebrows. He had wanted to ask Malygos how to use this thing. There was no need to ask immediately. The moment he grabbed it, the light of the stars and moon, which was emitting a mysterious glow, fused into his palm and rushed into his magic circuit with a domineering aura. Ba thump. Duque clearly heard the incomparably strong beating of his heart. Ba thump. It was the sound of his heartbeat suddenly slowing down by 10 times. It was like a drum that had been stretched out countless times. That feeling made Duque feel very strange. The next second, Duque suddenly let out a scream. Ah! He felt as if a huge ball of blood the size of a tennis ball was being pumped out of his aorta. Chapter 638. Even though Duque was a university student who had taken a basic course on the physiological structure of the human body, he had never thought that mages were more like a magical existence that fused 2 and 3 dimensions together. What appeared in his field of vision was the same outer shell of the body, but a completely different internal structure. In the 3-dimensional domain, the brain controlled the functions of his body, directing the operation of every internal organ, making the lungs breathe, the heart pump blood, and the liver detoxify. In the illusory vision of the 2-dimensional world, the mind that extended from the will controlled the magic circuit, and the flow of magic in the mental domain was more like the countless subdivided roots of a large tree, except for the root at the end that was used to absorb the elemental power from the outside world. The rest of the circuit would eventually take the shape of a ring. It was a continuous cycle, and it was constantly building a stronger and more powerful circuit. This was not a complicated process. The entire process could be said to be simple and crude. The light of stars and moon that crashed into Duque's body was simply pressing down on Duque's body with tremendous force. There was nothing in the world that could be achieved in a single leap. To be able to achieve it in one step only meant that one had made thorough preparations. It sounded like reaching the radiant moon level was such a wonderful thing. But in reality? Was it really that easy? In order to deal with the third war at the Dark Portal, and even in order to face the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth generation Lich Kings that might appear, Duque had long since built a magic foundation. This was like building a skyscraper that needed to be built with a foundation. If Duque's previous magic circuit was third-rate, it would be like using a matchstick to act as the pier of a bridge across the sea, and it would turn into dregs with one push. The magic circuit model that he used was almost the best model that he could find in this era. With the incomparably thick, arcane throne, as the cornerstone, Phoenix Flames, and Ice Crown, flew at the same time. Not only that, with the perfect connection between him and the system elf, the mind control system that Duque built was completely beyond this era. Precisely because he was clear about the development of mages in the original history, as well as the usage and power of new magic, Duque's creation of the magic circuit was expansive. He strived to make sure that the magic flowing in the circuit was pure enough and that a perfect balance between the 3 types of magic could be achieved, which was in line with the magic rules of this world. Duque's eyes were flashing with arcane brilliance as he looked into his body. Although the light of stars and moon was very rough, the magic circuit that was expanding and thickening showed unparalleled flexibility. The inner wall of the aging magic circuit was peeling off rapidly, and the residue that had lost its purpose flowed along with the high-speed impact of the magic power to the smaller, finer end branches of the circuit, and was expelled from the body through the root-like filaments. The walls of the circuits in his body were like a sponge, greedily absorbing the light of the stars and moon that came from outside his body. The new light spread to every circuit in his body along with the flow of magic power. It was a strange beauty of the rising sun, dispelling all the darkness on the earth and replacing everything with light. At this moment, Duque suddenly ran into trouble. When the power of light of the stars and moon broke into the circuits of arcane throne and crown of ice, there was no problem. But Phoenix Flame didn't seem to match. It wasn't that Maligos had tricked Duque. Light of the stars and moon, as the original magic power of the world of Azeroth, could perfectly match it as long as it was the magic power system of this world. What was wrong was the environment here. This was the Dragon Sleep Temple. It was fine if it was a neutral power, but wasn't advancing the power of the Phoenix in the Dragon Sleep Temple, which was the holy land of the dragons. As if provoked, the power of the Dragon Sleep Temple began to invade Duque's body in turn. Its purpose was very clear: to destroy the magic circuit of the phoenix that had provoked the power of the dragons. The dragon power that came from all directions carried a faint draconic might, and it not only continuously impacted the barrier of Duque's consciousness. It also crazily destroyed everything related to the phoenix, the circuit, magic power, and the body cells that were permeated with the power of the phoenix flame. At this moment, Duque was almost against the mysterious power of the entire Dragon Sleep Temple. Ugh! Caught off guard, Duque vomited a large mouthful of blood on the spot. Not good. I miscalculated. Maligo's eyelids twitched. At this moment, he was hesitant. As the king of magic, he certainly understood what had happened to Duque. If he didn't do anything, Duque's circuit would collapse and he would become a useless person in the world of magic. He hesitated for a tenth of a second, but he still stretched out his claws and was ready to help Duque. Whether it was for public or private reasons, he couldn't let Duque die here. However, there was an existence faster than him. As the big sister of the dragon aspects, Alexstrasza ignored his will and forcibly broke through his space. Of course, this had a lot to do with him not objecting. This also reflected the importance of Duque in her eyes. She actually rushed in at the risk of falling out with Maligos? Idiot! Give up your phoenix circuit, I'll give you something better. As she spoke, Alexstrasza pressed a powerful palm on Duque's back. This time, Duque truly saw how terrifying the strength of the top existences in this world was. He believed that the mental barrier that he and the system elf had figured out together was very complete. This was already layered, and just looking at it made his scalp tingle. According to military theory, this not only had crossfire cover, but it also took into account the characteristics of flexibility and sturdiness. Duque thought that this was the Maginot line of defense in the world of magic. However, under the attack of the Red Dragon Queen, such an incomparably complex mental defense collapsed like melting snow. She didn't have that kind of patience. Her method was simpler and more violent. In the first contact, she found the attribute of the mental power in the mental barrier and directly dissolved it with the corresponding attribute. You are the 5 elements. She is the reverse 5 elements. She directly erased the mental attribute on your mental barrier and decomposed the willpower into the most primitive divine thoughts. If she had the intention to harm Duque, Duque would be an idiot by now. Obviously, she wasn't. The flames were clearly violent and wanton. After Alexstrasza took over part of Duque's mental control, she decisively blew up the phoenix circuit in Duque's body and expelled it all out. Duque spat out another mouthful of blood. What was even more strange was that as soon as this mouthful of blood left his lips, it turned into a turbid flame and disappeared. Duque could see that, starting from his heart, there were hundreds of thousands of golden threads spreading out from his heart like tree roots. After reaching various parts of the body like blood vessels, they formed interlocking rings like veins that could recycle waste and return to the heart. Chapter 639. These were networks of various sizes. These were the newly born magic circuits. Magic power that was many times stronger than a morning star began to circulate inside. It flowed endlessly, surged, and never stopped. Even if Duque's life stopped, as long as there was still a will controlling it, the magic circuits could still operate endlessly and eternally. Perhaps the undead in the future did not need to be disturbed by the characteristics of a physical body and could focus on the magic circuits. That was why there were so many liches and great wizards. If Duque was really a cultivation maniac who pursued mysterious power, he would not be able to achieve eternal life. Perhaps he would also walk the evil path that many wizards had taken in history. Let's get back to the present. After Alexstrasza destroyed his Phoenix Flames magic circuit, Duque's situation did not completely improve. Instead, it showed signs of worsening. It was not that the flame circuit that the Red Dragon Queen had created for Duque was not good, but it was similar to the problems that Duque had encountered in the past. It was because it was too good that it began to overbearingly occupy the share of all the magic circuits in Duque's body. Alexstrasza frowned. She had also discovered the problem. She could build all of Duque's magic circuits according to the template she could make, but this would cause Duque's attributes to go from a perfect balance of multiple attributes to a single fire attribute. In the future, Duque could only mix fire. At some point, Malygos came before the human and dragon. Alexstrasza. Is this human very important to you? The queen gritted her teeth and nodded. Recalling the bits and pieces of Duque, Malygos rarely changed his view of humans. Perhaps I really underestimated the usefulness of this human? Perhaps, you owe me a favor. With that, the humanoid Malygos extended his hand to Duque. His hand met Alexstrasza's and pressed on Duque's chest. It was also a magical concept invasion, but the circuit that was replaced this time was different. Antonida's crown of ice was destroyed and replaced with Malygos' unknown ice circuit. No, it wasn't just the ice element. Even Duque's arcane throne was being modified. It continued to expand and expand. It was a terrible feeling. Duque opened his mouth wide, and his jaw was so wide that his throat could be seen. He wanted to shout, he wanted to roar, but he couldn't utter a single word. Behind was fire, and in front was ice. This was the true meaning of ice and fire. However, in order to endure the two heavens of ice and fire, one's body had to be strong enough. The system notification rang out non-stop. Warning! Warning! Extremely powerful fire and ice magic circuit patterns discovered. The two magic circuit models demanded a high amount of magic power from the Olympian mathematical circuit. Correspondingly, the power will also increase correspondingly. Duque clenched his teeth and roared in the spiritual world, "Damn you! I'm not afraid of you." System Elf, reverse calculate the arcane circuit model that satisfies both magic circuits at the same time. The system calculated at super high speed. In less than 20 milliseconds, the calculation results came out. The calculation results are here, but it is seriously not recommended for the host to try based on this, because according to the calculations, the magic power gap is as high as 99.369%. Do it. Host, I seriously don't recommend, do it. My magic power is not enough, but it doesn't mean that the two big bosses don't have enough magic power. If it were anyone else, or if it were in the past, Duque would be courting death by doing this, and it would be the kind of courting death that he brought upon himself. But it was different now. In a sense, this was more like an unkind way of demanding repayment for kindness. Human relationships were very mysterious. Blindly giving without asking for anything in return might make the other party very grateful at first, but after a long time, it would make the other party feel an unequal sense of loss. Just like Alexstrasza, she was the noble dragon queen, controlled supreme power, and had thousands of red dragons and dragonoid warriors under her command. During this period of time, it always gave her a sense of frustration that she couldn't help because of the restrictions of the rules or for other reasons. Help me. Strictly speaking, Duque didn't say these two words. Don't forget, who were in front of and behind him. The two dragon kings. At such a close distance, any small movement of Duque, or even the unnatural vibration in the air, would be sensed by them. In fact, if Duque didn't choose to construct the arcane circuit as the foundation, Malygos almost wanted to force the magic circuit that he thought was suitable to Duque. Although the circuit that he forced into the past was definitely not as good as the one that Duque created according to the situation, it would at least match the magic circuit that he and Alexstrasza sent out. Now, under such circumstances, Duque actually told them the arcane circuit model to be strengthened through the spiritual connection. Malygos couldn't help but look at Duque in a higher light. It was the same for the King of Magic, and it was the same for the Life Giver. The two Dragon Kings' faces were filled with undisguised shock. They were absolutely sure that before this, Duque had never come into contact with such a top-notch magic circuit model. It wasn't about secrecy. The outstanding physical talent of the dragon race allowed them to carry more and stronger magic circuits. In a sense, the magic circuit models that humans and elves came into contact with were emasculated versions that had been repeatedly weakened so that humans and elves could afford them. Secondly, to create such a powerful magic circuit, it also required an astronomical amount of magic power for humans. Most mortals wouldn't even consider this direction. For example, Sun King Anastrian used the power of the Sunwell to charge up. Without deducing how to use this power, how could he create the corresponding magic circuit model? In such a short time, not only did Duque deduce it, but in the eyes of the two Dragon Kings, this model was even more perfect than the models they could imagine and more suitable for Duque's body. They sucked in a breath of cold air. So there are real geniuses among humans. The two Dragon Kings thought at the same time. They looked at each other and immediately injected magic power without hesitation. This was the invasion of magic power, and it was almost a reverse of primary and secondary cooperation. The golden flame magic power and the pure white frost magic power each drew a circle in Duque's body. On the other side, there was an additional pure arcane power that passed through Duque's body and was mobilized to the place that Duque wanted. As the foundation of the two major magic circuits, the arcane circuit that Duque used as the foundation was also continuously thickening, deepening, and consolidating. Its construction speed even surpassed the sum of the two Dragon Kings. 3 huge compound circuits gradually took shape in Duque's body. Chapter 640. Closer. Even closer. So close that they almost overlapped. When the ice and fire circuits came into contact with the arcane circuits, there was no impact like when Mars collided with Earth. Instead, there was a strange harmony. As if they had gone through thousands of calculations, the 3 circuits matched so perfectly that even Maligos, the King of Magic, was surprised. It was not like the harmony of singing and the basic matching of the key could be deceived under the cover of the music. This was a true match that involved thousands of connection points of various sizes. This kind of coordination was completely beyond the scope of detection and correction by the human brain, or even the dragon brain. Even for a magic-type dragon aspect like Maligos, such a minor problem was not something he needed to consider. For him, the human body was too small as a vessel for magic. It would be a success if there was no leakage of magic that affected the body's functions on a large scale. However, there was no huge impact this time, nor was there any stiff feeling of mana splattering due to the mismatch. It was a complete fusion of water and milk. From the connection of the main circuit to the fusion of the branch circuits, there were more than thousands of collisions in this moment of contact. At this point in the construction of the magic circuit, the most dangerous moment had passed. What was left was the refinement gained from countless experiments, the understanding of the upper and lower limits of magic output, and the understanding of the amount of magic produced in the body. Of course, in the eyes of the two Dragon Kings, this was all that the light of the stars and moon could do. They did not expect that Duque did not stop there. Maligos was the first to discover the problem. Duque's magic circuit was too large even for a radiant moon wizard. Magic circuits were not static things. Wizards would further expand the circuit according to their casting needs. In other words, some branches that would affect the stability of the main circuit would be cut off. This kid, Duque, was obviously building his magic circuit with a Breaking Dawn wizard as the standard. He's really ambitious. Maligos could not help but laugh. Isn't that so? Without enough ambition, who would think of plotting against Nesario with the level of a Morning Star wizard? Alexstrasza smiled like a flower. You still want me to help him further? Malygos was a little displeased. Favors could not be owed endlessly. It was like a person who borrowed 1,000,000 yuan from the bank, and then immediately borrowed another 100,000,000 yuan. Insatiable greed would be hated. At that moment, Duque, whose body was starting to stabilize, revealed what he had been plotting for a long time. I have news that a demon specializing in necromancy has his eyes on Sindagosa's remains. He probably wants to use dark magic to make Sindagosa into a bone dragon. Who dares? Like a dog whose tail had been stepped on, Malygos immediately blew his beard and glared. The commander of the Burning Legion, the deceiver kill Jaden. Duque slowly slandered Chairman Dan. I'm not lying. In the future, when the Lich King resurrects Sindagosa and builds the Scourge army, wouldn't it be kill Jaden's idea? At this time, it was of utmost importance to have someone to speak up for him. Alexstrasza said, "It's been 10,000 years. In the past, you didn't let Sindagosa return to the Dragonbone Waste because of Neltharion's hatred. Now that everything is over, it's only right to bring her and the remains of the other blue dragons back." The Dragonbone Waste was equivalent to the ancestral graves of the dragons. The ancestral graves were guarded by guardians. Malygos glanced at Duque. "Alright, you're right. Now, you and I are even." With that, Malygos casually threw a spot of light into Duque's arms. He saw the system prompt. "Congratulations, host. You have obtained the Fire of Breaking Dawn, temporarily sealed, will be unsealed when your strength is sufficient. This is an extremely rare treasure in the world. With it, you will no longer have any obstacles in stepping into the Breaking Dawn realm." Duke was smashed by this sudden huge meat pie. He was in a state of blissful stupor and felt dizzy. Whether it was the possible Draenor expedition or the destined Third War of the Dark Portal. The power of mortals was no longer reliable. War was no longer something that could be settled by piling up the power of mortals. Only extraordinary power was the most reliable. Now it was like a pillow when he was sleepy. Duke didn't have a good impression of Malygos at first. Now, even if this old blue dragon was a male, Duque had the urge to kiss him a few times. Suddenly, Duque's entire body was turned around. The first thing that came into view was that beautiful face with a hint of slyness. "Yo! No need to thank him. Just thank me." The Red Dragon Queen puffed out the pair of giant cats in front of her chest and then made a proud expression. "Damn, I was quite touched just now. Now I don't feel anything." Duque was also speechless towards this ancient female dragon who made him feel angry and funny at the same time. She also didn't seem to understand the ways of the world. Are you trying to say that the debt between us is also settled?" Duque touched his nose. Alexstrasza displayed her proud queen's demeanor. She elegantly pressed her right hand on her sexy collarbone and raised her chin slightly. Her golden vertical pupils flashed with pride. "How is that possible? Saving my dragon egg, freeing me from my painful captivity. How can the insignificant, light of stars and moon, and breaking dawn fire, compare? Don't tell me that someone as powerful as me is worth the same as a mere human breaking dawn wizard? Alright, what you said makes sense. I don't mind if you continue to owe me a favor." Duque rolled his eyes and shrugged. After nagging the queen for a while, Duque began to calm down and carefully feel the surging mana that had risen to the next level. A day later, a piece of news shocked the entire Lordaeron. The 17-year-old Duke Marcus had suddenly become a Radiant Moon wizard. The moment Duque stepped out of the portal, all the high-ranked wizards in Lordaeron sensed it. Morning stars, as the name suggested, were the radiance of their power. In the eyes of others, they were just the light of the stars. Even though they had the ability to generate mana, it was extremely limited. Radiant Moon was a completely different concept. Not to mention the quality, just the quantity alone was more than 100 levels higher than a morning star. On a cloudless night, one could ignore the stars in the sky, but definitely not the moon that hung high in the sky. This was especially so when the radiant moon great wizard who was protecting Terina's told him about Duque's advancement. He was stunned for a long time. Because, be it humans, dwarves, or high elves, any radiant moon wizard would be respectfully addressed as Great Wizard. Chapter 641. A 17-year-old archmage? Any mage who reached the archmage level would definitely become an honored guest of any kingdom. He became a great wizard at the age of 17, and he was the only one in the past 1,000 years apart from Medivh. Countless people were so shocked that they lost their ability to speak. Isn't this too ridiculous? King Salas Trollbane was silent for a long time. If Duque is willing to admit that he's a dwarf, I'll definitely give him an honorary warrior medal from Iron Furnace Castle. Magni Bronzebeard laughed loudly. We dwarves don't have mages, and Duque isn't a warrior, Muradin Bronzebeard mocked his elder brother. Why isn't he a dwarf? Gerbin said regretfully. Of course, the happiest was still Stormwind. Lang received the news. He knew very well that Stormwind was in the process of restoring its kingdom. The ministers of internal affairs obviously wanted to break a copper coin in half, but they still announced on the spot that Stormwind would hold a large banquet to celebrate Duque's promotion. Lang and Daylin had been discussing bilateral trade, but the two kings couldn't wait for Duque to return from the teleportation array and came together to welcome Duque. Halfway between the venue and the teleportation array, they met Duque, who was already surrounded by the Windrunner sisters. Duque. Lang was overjoyed. Weren't you going to the Dragon Slumber Temple ceremony? Why did you suddenly promote? I'm curious too, Daylin said. Duque sighed. The Blue Dragon King Malygos is very grateful that I helped him avenge his wife's death. He dragged me along and insisted on teaching me some magic experience. Since the King of Magic is so kind, I can't refuse. I accidentally leveled up. On Duque's right, Aurelia had a hard time holding it in, but she was a sensible woman and barely held back her laughter. On the left, Sasha couldn't hold it in. She covered her mouth secretly because she was afraid that she would accidentally laugh and cause internal injuries. 2 minutes ago, Duque had just told them that he had shamelessly asked Malygos to return the favor, and then something had happened. Alexstrasza had protected him with her life, which was why he had been promoted with the help of the two Dragon Kings. Now that he was in front of the two kings, how did it become the proud Blue Dragon King who was kneeling down and licking his boots to promote him? Sasha was not someone who was good at hiding her emotions. Aurelia also had her flaws, but King Dahlan did not care. What Dai Lin cared about was the fact that Duque had advanced. Duke Marcus's rise to power was legendary in the entire alliance and even the entire human world. In this legend, the only fly in the ointment was Duque's personal strength. Although Duque also had the battle record of killing a sword sage, his combat power was obviously lower than that of Uther, Anduin, and Antonidas. Now, Duque's last shortcoming was made up for. What was presented in front of Dai Lin was the perfect Duque. Dai Lin was complimenting him, but no one knew what he was thinking. On the other side, Anduin had also rushed over. He had been attending another meeting, and had galloped here with Mograine. Without saying anything, he went up and gave Lin Li a bear hug. Ahem. I'm going to die. Let go. You orc in human skin, Duque cursed. Ha ha ha. Laughter was heard everywhere. It was a joy to be able to bully a newly advanced archmage. Lang was gratified. Duque's timely promotion had given him hope of reviving the Storm Royal mages. Many of the mages that Duque had won over with the Karazhan library had secretly complained that Duque did not have enough time to guide them. There were also some who saw that Duque's level was not high, and had other thoughts. All of this was solved with Duque's promotion. Not every mage apprentice or low-level mage could receive guidance from Antonidas, let alone the Sun King Anastrian, who would not teach outsiders. Being able to receive guidance from a radiant moon archmage was the ultimate goal of most mage apprentices with potential. He had thought that Stormwind would not be able to recover in the field of mystery after losing Medivh, but now it seemed that was not the case. As long as Duque could become a Breaking Dawn mage before the age of 30, no, 50, then Stormwind's position in the field of mystery would be as solid as a rock. Unfortunately, Duque had told Lang that Karazhan was a little unstable. Otherwise, Lang would be willing to celebrate for 3 to 5 days. However, this did not affect the banquet tonight. The second day of the third year of the Dark Portal. The New Year's banquet had just been held last night. Most of the nobles did not expect that there would be another grand banquet soon. A grand banquet usually required a lot of preparation, but since the 25th of December, there would be banquets almost every day. As long as one could afford it, it was as luxurious as one could ask for. Standing at the entrance of the banquet hall of the Stormwind State Guesthouse, King Lang, Anduin, and the protagonist of the night, Duque, received the blessings of every guest. Congratulations, Your Excellency Marcus. No one expected Prince Arthas to come from Rotterdam. Today, Arthas was dressed splendidly. The black evening gown custom-made by the royal tailor was perfect for him. Although Arthas was only 13 years old, his outstanding genes made him not only tall, but also had the potential to be a handsome guy. Thank you, Your Highness, Duque replied respectfully. Actually, I am not much younger than Your Excellency. If possible, I would still like to call you Brother Duque. You can call me by my name as well. Arthesa's face was as handsome as a spring breeze, and it was difficult for anyone to resist her enthusiasm. All right then. Welcome, Arthas. The King Duque secretly channeled mana into his arms. At this moment, Duque was like an ogre. He gave Arthas a bear hug and made it hard for him to breathe. The 13-year-old had not developed well yet, and Arthas was defeated immediately. Everyone said that Duque was weak, but it did not seem like it. Arthas, who had been crushed by Duque's strength, finally managed to catch his breath. His face was red. Sorry, my father is not feeling well today. He asked me to come and congratulate you on his behalf, Duque. Not feeling well? Was Tarina's feeling stifled? The leaders of the various kingdoms who heard this snickered. One by one, the nobles came to congratulate Duque. Other than Kuel Salus and Gilnis who had left the alliance, all the leaders of the kingdoms came. The only unexpected guest was Krasus, who came with Ronan. After some small talk, Krasus said, Duque, why don't you come and be Ronan's teacher? Huh? Chapter 642. Duque was shocked. To be Ronan's teacher? That didn't seem right. Although there was no seniority in learning, as long as you were of a lower level than the other party, regardless of whether you were 80 years old or 100 years old, you had to call someone senior, but a 17-year-old young man with a 20-year-old disciple, that scene, not to mention that was Ronan. The famous example of a loser's counterattack in history, Ronan, who had no background but was almost at the level of a mage. If he took Ronan as his disciple, he felt that his moral integrity would be greatly reduced. Well, even Duque himself did not believe that he was a person of moral integrity for a long time. Duque told himself in his heart, I even saved Lothar, what difference does it make if I take Ronan as my disciple? However, he still had to put on an act. Duque said sincerely, Ronan, after all, I have gone through life and death with you. Personally, I quite admire you. Perhaps I have enough achievements to boast to anyone, but my age is right there, and I may not be more knowledgeable than you. Do you really want to be my disciple? Ronan looked a little embarrassed. Duque was right, but so what? Duque's resume blinded all the mages. a 17-year-old radiant moon mage. Killed the Burning Legion's boss, Sargeras. Saved hundreds of thousands of Stormwind citizens. Transported 50,000 elite soldiers on an ice ship in one night. Became the Alliance's deputy commander at the age of 16, led the army to conquer the entire Lordaeron continent, and killed millions of orcs. Killed the Sacred Swordsman chief, destroyed a warlock. Saved the Red Dragon Queen, killed Nethario. Even though he had gone on adventures with Duque, Ronan knew very well that the one standing in front of him was a living legend of the Alliance. He put one hand on his chest and bowed. No, Lord Marcus is too humble. Your courage is no less than Wuther the Lightbringer, who charged against 200,000 orcs with 12 riders. Your wisdom is enough to light up the entire Azeroth starry sky. I, Ronan, sincerely hope to worship Lord Marcus as my master, to learn how to be a person, to learn wisdom, and to learn the mysteries of magic. These words were definitely not thought up by Ronan himself. If Luo Ning was this good with words, he wouldn't have offended so many people in the first place. Duque shifted his gaze to Crassus's face. The human-shaped red dragon couldn't help but blush. Damn you! He was just short of whistling and pretending to be innocent. Luo Ning panicked and tried to explain, no. Lord Marcus, don't blame Lord Crassus. I was afraid that I would say something wrong, so I asked him for advice. This time, it was Crassus' turn to laugh. Don't underestimate our great hero, Duque. If he was such a petty person, no matter how great his achievements were, he wouldn't have been recognized by so many kings. In the direction Crassus was pointing. Sure enough, Luo Ning saw the officials of the 9 great kingdoms chatting merrily and wittily. This was a private banquet, but the dignitaries of various countries had come. What was their purpose? This had long since surpassed simple benefits, it was more of a recognition of Duke Marcus. At this moment, Luo Ning's eyes were filled with indescribable envy. This expression lasted for 2 seconds, and then he turned around and bowed deeply towards Duque. I ask Lord Marcus to accept me as a disciple. I might not be able to become a great hero like you, but I still hope that one day, I can become a great arcana master on par with Lord Marcus. Good. I agree. However, calling him Lord Marcus was too distant. You can call me Teacher Duque in the future. Understood, Teacher Duque. Seeing the super awesome person whose name would go down in history actually take him as his master, Duque felt his bones go numb, even his footsteps were a bit light. After Luo Ning left, Aurelia, dressed in evening clothes, couldn't help but ridicule Duque. Hey! Duque, is taking Luo Ning as a disciple really something to be happy about? Wintessa also came over. Yes. I feel that he's a bit special in arcane magic, but not necessarily outstanding. Don't true geniuses have already shown their talents long ago? No, no, no. Duque pretended to shake the index finger of his right hand mysteriously. Rather than doubt, you should believe in my foresight. Speaking of foresight, the Windrunner sisters put their hands on their hips. On this point, they really had to admire Duque. He really made a mistake when using people. Even bringing Marion when saving the Red Dragon Queen could not be said to be a mistake, because judging from how Duque had backfired on Nethario, perhaps Duque had predicted this from the beginning. Duque did not know if he could train Luo Ning well. After all, in the original history, there were 3 great pharaoh of the younger generation, Khadgar, Luo Ning, and Jaina. One became a ghost, one seemed to have been robbed of his role by someone and became a bit unknown, and the last one was still a lowly who had not yet expired. Duque silently muttered in his heart, this is the world's fault. After the Second World War at the Dark Portal, Duque still felt that the world did not seem to have changed as much as he had imagined. However, with this abominable transmigrator stirring up trouble, things seemed to be developing in a strange direction. On the other side, Dailin and Lang seemed to be talking about something, and then Anduin also went over to join in. Looking at the three guys who were beaming with joy, Duque suddenly had a feeling that these three guys were going to cause trouble. Suddenly shivering, Duque had an ominous premonition in his heart. Sure enough, in the next second, three burly animals came together. Duque pulled Luo Ning over as a shield. "Yo, why are the three of you here together?" "Just in time, let me introduce you, this is my new disciple, Luo Ning. He is extremely talented in arcane magic." Seeing the three nobles at the same time, Luo Ning was a little confused. Only when Duque secretly kicked him did Luo Ning come to his senses. "Your Majesty Proudmoore, Your Majesty Rin, Commander Lothar, greetings." "Huh. Disciple. It's okay, I believe in your judgment." Lothar's loud voice was the first to congratulate him. But Lang. For some reason, Duque always felt that Lang's gaze seemed to be telling him, "Duque, you brought this upon yourself? Did I do something wrong? Duque, you've started to accept disciples?" Dylene's eyes were playful. Can't I? At least I can be respectfully addressed as the Great Mage," Duque replied with his hands on his waist. No, I very much recognize your strength. Since you've already accepted a disciple, why don't you also accept a genius in frost magic?" "Who?" As soon as he asked, Duque felt a little regretful. He already knew the answer. "Yo, Jaina, come here for a while." Dylene called out to his daughter. Duque clenched his teeth, looking as if he had a toothache. The next moment, Duque saw a golden-haired loli in a blue dress with white edges walking over quickly. Chapter 643. Jaina Proudmoore. She was the famous girl who sold her father. Now, she was still a loli who had not yet expired. When Duque saw Jaina again, he was shocked. The 13-year-old Jaina was already beautiful beyond the mortal world. After not seeing her for more than a year, the girl's puberty was obvious. She had inherited her mother's beauty. The influence of puberty had affected her, and the curve of her butt had become beautiful. Her chest, which used to be exquisite, had now become seductive. Ah! The unripe fruit had also begun to grow into a ripe peach. Congratulations, Master Duque. Seeing Jaina give him a well-behaved lady's bow, Duke's mind was in a trance. His eyes were seeing things, and his ears were hearing things. Jaina tilted her head and said to Duque, "Brother, although I don't mind, according to the law, if you push me down, you will be sentenced to at least 3 years in prison, and the highest is life." In the spiritual world, Duque's nose started to bleed, and he replied in a domineering manner, 3 years of hard work. Life is not a loss. The little lowly Jaina's face suddenly turned pale. All right. The scene returned to reality. Duke looked at Jaina with a dignified and calm gaze. She did not have many complicated thoughts, and she had the purity of Princess Kalia, as well as a pair of eyes that Kalia did not have. Yes. The biggest difference was in those sapphire eyes. If Kalia was a canary in a cage that King Tarinas had carefully nurtured, she would not be able to escape. In that case, Jaina was a polar ice phoenix who was ready to set her dreams free at any time. Noble, beautiful, but with a faint sense of danger. A very magical sense of excitement was stimulating Duque's senses. And Dellen's next words made Duque feel a strange excitement in his heart reach its peak. "Duque. There is a big gap between our ages, and after going through life and death together, I have long regarded you as my little brother. My daughter is not like me, she cannot be the daughter of the sea. But I don't want to waste her unparalleled magic talent, so I want to entrust her to you." Duque tried to suppress the strange feeling in his heart. "I remember that Her Highness Jaina worships His Excellency the most. But Lord Antonidas is busy. I've asked him a few times, but he always brushed me off." Daylin shrugged. I'm busy too. Karazhan will be attacked by demons soon. Even if I do, I still have to rebuild Stormwind, Duque said shamelessly. Suddenly, Antonidas came over. Are you trying to say that you have less energy than an old man like me? You bastard, did you guys discuss this beforehand? Duque seemed to want to refuse. I'm sorry. Daylin, Gianna is too beautiful. What if I can't control myself? Before Duque could finish, Daylin had already put his arm around Duque's shoulder. It's all right. Just remember to pay for your ticket after boarding the ship. I'm not picky when it comes to betrothal gifts. Just give me a deep-water port as a betrothal gift. Father, Jaina was so embarrassed that she stomped her feet anxiously. Although she'd heard that her father wanted to betroth her to Duque, it was still embarrassing for a noble princess to say it in public. Dear, I'm just saying. Daylin comforted his daughter casually. Duque couldn't stay calm anymore. Damn you. Are you trying to test my moral integrity? Aren't you afraid that I won't pay for my ticket after boarding the ship? No. First, I believe that you're not that kind of person. Second, if you are, I'll declare war on Stormwind. Even if all the men in the country die, I'll kill you. When Daylin said this, Duque's face turned green. Bullsh *T. He might even become the son-in-law of the Proudmoore family. If he taught her well, there would be no benefit at all. Only a ghost would do that. Please forgive me for firmly rejecting you, Duque said firmly. Don't be in such a hurry to reject me. At this time, Lang and Andoin came up. Andoin put his hand on Duque's shoulder and showed him a contract made of craft paper. It was a 10-year economic and trade contract between Stormwind and the Kingdom of Kurtiras. From trade to supplies, to arms supply, to maritime cooperation. It was almost a comprehensive cooperation between the two countries. Duque roughly looked at it. Stormwind could earn at least 2 million gold coins every year, and that was only for the first year. In other words, the contract was estimated to be worth more than 20 million gold coins. Obviously, this was a cooperation that Stormwind couldn't refuse. Lang, you're selling me off for a mere 20 million? Duque was devastated. You can't put it that way. Princess Jaina will return to Kurtiras after studying under you until she's 20, or if she reaches the Radiant Moon rank early, or if you marry another noble, Leon said, a little embarrassed. Duque vomited 3 liters of blood. The other party wasn't trying to force it onto them unreasonably. Teaching someone's daughter would earn him 20 million gold coins in net profit. Although it would be split for 10 years, Duque knew very well that the southern continent's Iron Furnace Fort and Stormwind City would have nothing to do with the third battle of the Dark Portal. As long as they survived the wave of Nzul, Stormwind would welcome a 10-year development period. Moreover, becoming enemies with Kurtiras would not benefit Stormwind at all. Before the underground train tunnel was opened to the Iron Furnace Fort, Stormwind's only way to communicate with the outside world was through the sea. There was no need to go north through the burning steppes. The Black Iron Dwarves who opposed the Bronzebeard Dwarves were at the bottom of the Black Rock Mountain. Going there for trade would be suicide. Duque looked at Lang and Andoin, then at Daylin and Antonidas. These old foxes all had an invisible devil's tail on their buttocks, wagging it as they snickered. Lang, Andoin, is there really no room for discussion? Duque asked. The 2 bastards shook their heads like a rattle drum. Duque's bird of despair. Father, didn't we agree that it's only an apprenticeship? Jaina asked. It's an apprenticeship. Daylin replied. It's just a precaution, so I said it first. Jaina was also a bird of despair. Just like that, the bitter Jaina walked in front of Duque. Jaina Proudmoore requests Master Duke Marcus to accept me as a disciple and guide me on the path of arcane magic. All right. Duque said helplessly. From today onwards, you are my disciple, Duque. Come, greet Luo Ning. He entered the sect earlier than you, so he's your big brother. Greetings, senior brother Ronan. Greetings, junior sister Jaina. Ronan was older, so Jaina's greeting was not out of place. At this time, Dalan suddenly said, Duque, I know my daughter is a little smart and has all kinds of ideas. I'm afraid you won't be able to control her. How about this, I'll give you my sword. I, Dalan, hereby swear in the name of Proudmoore that I will give Duke Marcus the right to discipline my daughter Jaina. If Jaina does anything that goes against the rules of humanity, Master Duque can use this sword to punish Jaina. I, Dalan, will not object. Chapter 644. Duque was dumbfounded. The leaders of the alliance were dumbfounded. This was an era where nobles controlled society. It was also an era where the spirit of chivalry was important. If a knight felt that his apprentice had violated the spirit of chivalry, he could speak up and kill the apprentice without taking any responsibility. The people around would instead praise the knight for putting his own family before justice. However, this rarely happened among nobles, let alone among the royal family. The kings present were all smart people. They quickly understood why Daylin did this. After all, Daylin had put in a lot of effort. Originally, the most ideal successor of Kul Tiras was the eldest prince, Drake. Drake was an excellent successor who had received Daylin's teachings. Be it in martial arts, style, or courage, he was a model among the princes. Drake, who had been independent since a long time ago, was comparable to his father in terms of leadership. However, Drake had died under the dragon breath of the ancient red dragon, Tyrannistas. That was why Daylin had gone on a rampage. Duque had asked for justice for him. Daylin was extremely grateful to Duque. After the grief, Daylin had to face reality. He had to choose a new successor. He only had 2 legitimate children, his second son, Tandrid, and his daughter, Jaina. No one would care if a noble had 10,000 illegitimate children, but the only legitimate successor recognized by other nobles was the child of a noble lady of the same bloodline. Unless these 2 children also died, it would not be his illegitimate daughter's turn to stand up for him. Since Thoradin the Great, there had never been a female queen in the human kingdom. Daylin knew that his second son, Tandrid, was only a mediocre person, while Jaina was extremely talented, both in terms of magic and intelligence. Jaina was still relatively naive now. He was afraid that there would be opponents in the future. If he left Jaina in the country, Tandrid would definitely not be Jaina's match if someone ignited Jaina's ambition. Since Thoradin the Great's era, the princesses of the Eastern Kingdom were notoriously hard to find a husband. If they wanted to marry, they had to at least have a noble status. They were either princes or at least dukes. This also depended on whether it could bring enough benefits to the country and whether the other country's king would agree. Just like Princess Kalia of Rotterdam, Tyrinas had his eyes on Duque at first, but unfortunately, he met Lord Presto, who was disguised as Deathwing. If Kalia had not faked her death, according to Tyrinas's personality, it would not be surprising if Kalia was left alone in the palace for the rest of her life. It wasn't something that could be done casually. It wouldn't do if the nobles were too low in status, but if the nobles were too high in status, they would be afraid that the nobles would use their power to bully them. Any duke who marries a princess becomes a prince in the truest sense of the word. If something were to happen to the official heir, it would be a loss of royal authority. This kind of thing happened too many times since ancient times. Before the war, Daylin didn't really mind Jaina and Prince Arthas of Lordaeron getting closer. Being the Queen of Lordaeron didn't seem to be a bad thing. The battle at the Dark Portal changed everything. Lordaeron's reputation was tarnished. Tyrinas putting Nesario in an important position could still be justified, but Tarina's and the entire upper class of Lordaeron's attempt to annex Alterac was real. Without this, there would be no such thing as making Presto the king. Tarina's was willing to use Neltharion. Who knew if he would kill Thanreed after Arthas married Jaina? If that was the case, Lordaeron could legitimately annex Kul Tiras. So Daelin completely changed his mind. He didn't even want to put Jaina in the Dalajan, which was so close to Lordaeron. If Arthas really wanted to see Jaina, he could just take a boat across Lordaeron Mill Lake. But if he put Jaina in Karazhan, which was in the hinterland of Stormwind, that would be a different story. Daelin didn't believe that Tarina's would let Arthas cross more than 2,000 kilometers, or use something as dangerous as a portal to meet Jaina. If he really did come, wouldn't there be Duque to block the way? Now that Duque had accepted Jaina as his disciple, it was like the fish had taken the bait. Daelin knew his daughter's charm very well. She was only 12 years old, but she had already charmed all the male Dalajan mages. Now, she was even more beautiful. From today onwards, she was going to live under the same roof as Duque for 7 years. Daelin didn't believe that nothing would happen. Daelin was also an experienced playboy when he was young. He could tell at a glance that Aurelia and Sasha, who were always by Duque's side, had already fallen for him. It wasn't just the Windrunner sisters. The little girl from the Barav family was also deeply in love even though she was still a virgin. Daelin was very smart, but he would never know that Duque was a transmigrator. He was extremely wary of his precious daughter. Fire, theft, and betrayal. Duque was really afraid. He was afraid that he would be cursed to death if he wasn't careful. Daelin had his own wishful thinking. Duque also had his own black-bellied plan. In just 2 minutes, a set of, the real black-bellied lowly training plan, had been born in Duque's mind. However, Duque, who was possessed by the best actor, didn't let anyone notice anything amiss. Everyone. While we're celebrating Duque's promotion to a Radiant Moon Archmage, I'd like to announce a piece of good news. My daughter, Jaina, is going to be Duque's disciple. She's going to learn the secrets of magic from Duque. Daelin struck while the iron was hot and announced it publicly. This instantly ignited the enthusiasm of the big shots in the alliance. Congratulations. This was the blessing of the neutral King Salas. Wow. Are you sure it's her teacher and not her husband? This was the ridicule of the dwarf King Magni. That's right, that's right. This was the cheering of the crowd, Kudrin. Yo! Duque, don't misguide the magic genius Jaina. In my opinion, Jaina's talent is astonishing. She'll at least become a Radiant Moon Archmage in the future. The old fool Antonidas teased. Then. Duque, as a teacher, shouldn't you give your disciple a presentable gift? Jurban, you damned shortest of them all. I'll remember you. With so many kings jeering and nobles watching, if Duque didn't take out something good, how would he be able to mingle in the alliance's upper echelons? Duque didn't hesitate either. Greetings, Teacher Marcus. When Ronan knelt on one knee and Jaina kowtowed, Duque took out 2 pieces of magic equipment. Ronan was an accessory, while Jaina was a pair of gloves. Daelin elbowed Antonidas. How about it? Does Duque mistreat my daughter? Antonidas' eyes bulged, and after a long time, he said, Duque, let's make a deal. Can you exchange these 2 items for me? Chapter 645. Wow! Under the cheers of the 3 dwarf kings, the leaders of the alliance and even the surrounding nobles let out a second wave of exclamations. Who was Antonidas? He was one of the 2 Breaking Dawn great wizards in the current known kingdom. After Kuel Salas left the alliance, he became the leader of the alliance's occult domain. The things that Duque had given to his 2 disciples actually made even Antonidas jealous. How precious were they? After hearing Antonidas's evaluation, even Jaina, who was used to seeing big things, was so shocked that her mouth opened in an O shape. She almost spat out her tongue. She was a country bumpkin who had never seen an exquisite equipment before. At first, Daylin was afraid that Duque would be too stingy. After all, his daughter had been forced onto him, and Duque was not too willing to accept it. Daylin really wanted to see if Duque valued his daughter from the gifts that her master had given her. Now that he knew that Duque had given him something priceless, Daylin started to complain about Antonidas. "Oh, Antonidas, you're not being kind. That's a gift from Duque to me, and you still have the cheek to ask for it?" Old Antonidas blushed, and then said bitterly and aggrievedly, "Please, it's not just me. Even those arrogant elven wizards, no, even if Anastrian was here, he would want it too. Because those two are Wings of Death's treasures. Oh my God. And they're even family heirlooms." As the authoritative pharaoh finished speaking, the noise in the banquet hall suddenly rose by more than one level. It was like a raging wave. The exclamations of the leaders of the alliance and the nobles even alerted the guards outside the door. A few paladins rushed into the banquet hall with the royal guards, and only retreated awkwardly when they saw that nothing was wrong. Wings of Death, Nisario's treasures. Duque was really willing to part with it. When Jaina first received the pair of gloves, she instinctively felt that this pair of magic gloves was extraordinary. Jaina fell in love with the dark red background and mysterious purple-blue patterns at first glance. The moment she put it on, she felt that her magic circuits had at least doubled. Not only the capacity, but even the flow of mana had been greatly increased. Jaina could clearly feel that this was only a very, very small portion of the glove's power. Furthermore, there was a faint dragon's breath lingering around her fingers. This was not the corrosive dragon breath of the Wings of Death. This was the frost dragon breath that had been carefully purified and modified by some almighty being. For Jaina, who was only an earth mage, it was an unimaginable treasure. If that was the case, it wouldn't be considered a treasure of the Wings of Death. What shocked Jaina the most were the words, "family heirloom." That's right. This pair of gloves was precious because it was a family heirloom. In other words, it did not limit the magic level of the user. Even the lowest level magic apprentice could wear it. Mages with a family heirloom would cultivate faster, and there was no need to worry about collecting the best magic equipment in the process of cultivation. This was because the attributes of the family heirloom would automatically unlock the seal layer by layer as the owner's magic level improved. Moreover, because the level of the heirloom itself was very high, there was no need to consider eliminating it before the owner reached the level that the equipment should have. Not to mention, it was an epic equipment that even Antonidas was jealous of. Originally, Jaina was dissatisfied with her father's unreasonable giving of a sword to Duque, allowing Duque to control her life and death after she violated the ban. However, in the face of Duque's precious super gift, Jaina's young heart fell a little. "So brother Duque. Oh, teacher Duque still likes me very much. That sword is more of a formality. I won't violate the ban, so teacher won't use that sword to punish me." Jaina's pretty face was red from excitement. She raised her sharp chin and looked up at Duque's gentle and kind face. "Teacher, what's the name of this pair of gloves?" Duque said kindly, "This pair of gloves has a very nice name. It's called, Misty Gloves. Blooming like fireworks and flowing like water. So nice. Thank you, teacher. I really, really like this pair of gloves." In order to express her excitement, Jaina used a total of 3 tens to describe her excitement. A certain someone laughed sinisterly in his heart. "That's right. Misty, if you dare to mess around in the future, I'll light you up like a cigarette." On the other side, Ronan was so excited that he was about to cry. In this life, Ronan did not have the merit of being the main force that saved the Red Dragon Queen. Even though he did not kill any of his teammates this time, he was still not well received in the Daligen. His days were miserable. Originally, Ronan had become Duque's disciple under Crace's suggestion, but he never thought that Duque would really take him in. He was already overjoyed that Duque had taken him in. Who would have thought that Duque would be so rich as to take out 2 rare treasures from the wings of death as gifts? Looking at the accessory that looked like half a small stone slab in his hands, Ronan was speechless for a long time. Even a magician's apprentice could feel the unparalleled power contained within it, as well as the mysterious mana amplification. This was not just a simple mana amplification. Ronan could feel that when he started casting spells, the accessory would give him more than just a single level of amplification. It might even give him 2 or 3 levels of amplification. This was a peerless treasure that any magician could only dream of. Teacher Duque actually gave such an amazing item away just like that. Just how much does teacher think of me? Tears were already welling up in Ronan's eyes. Teacher. Thank you. I. Unable to express his excitement with words, Ronan ran in front of Duque and kowtowed heavily. In this era, only the lowliest citizens would have to kowtow like this when they saw their leader. Even if Duque was a teacher, it was still a bit exaggerated. But everyone could understand. Behind King Daylin, Daylin's old lover and personal bodyguard, Gina Goldsword, did not hide her envy. She whispered into Daylin's ear, "I'm so jealous of Gina. If someone gave me this before I met you, I would sleep with them for the rest of my life, not to mention kowtowing." Dahlin knew that his old lover was joking, but he was still deeply touched. Duque helped Ronan up. "Get up. This accessory of yours is called Unruly Will. Just like Gina's, it's a rare treasure." Duque lied with a straight face. Chapter 646. An accessory that could temporarily increase intelligence every time a damaging spell was cast for 10 seconds, and could stack up to 10 times. Even if it seemed to be the same level as the glove next door, could its actual combat effect be the same? In the game, players would pray every week to open 3 of these items at once, and it was best to wear 2 at the same time. Would it be an ordinary item? Not to mention Ronan and Jaina, even Antonidas had never seen Unruly Will before. Only those who had used it knew that this was a divine item that mages of the same level could only dream of. Especially for a mage like Ronan, who had a high explosive hairstyle, it was like adding wings to a tiger. Anyone who touched this thing would be killed. Think about it, the guy opposite him had been holding his breath until his face was red, and he had held his breath to fire a .38 caliber pistol bullet. Who would have thought that the next moment, it would be a .5 caliber sniper rifle bullet, and the next moment, it would be a howitzer. Every time a spell was cast, the damage could be stacked, and the damage could be stacked 10 times in one go. Behind Duque's seemingly fair appearance, he was a classic case of favoritism. It wasn't just any ordinary favoritism, but a direct one, the kind of favoritism that could tip the scales. Everyone only knew that they were all from Nesario, but who knew that there were subdivided production versions of the same boss, ordinary version and elite version? Yes. Jaina's smoke glove was the production version, and Ronan's was the elite version. The Unruly Will of the same level, and Duque had another one on his waist. Duque didn't know why there were 2 identical Unruly Will on Deathwing. After he tried to wear both at the same time and failed, he simply did it as a favor. Anyway, it was definitely not a loss to give it to Ronan. Cough cough. Seeing Ronan kneel to him so sincerely, even the thick-skinned Duque felt a little hot. Thinking about it, Duque felt a little relieved. Not to mention anything else, even if he was biased, so what? Not every talented mage could have an heirloom modified from Deathwing's exquisite equipment. One had to know that the modifier was the Red Dragon Queen life-giver Alexstrasza. And this was just something that a certain queen casually did. Although that fellow kept saying that there would be a heavy reward, Duque didn't even see what the hell the so-called heavy reward was until he left the Dragon Sleep Temple. Duque wasn't in a hurry. As long as his relationship with Alexstrasza and the Crimson Dragon Legion was solid enough, it would be fine. At this moment, everyone present applauded. Magni said carelessly, "All right. Even I, the king, am envious. The two of you are so lucky to have such a generous teacher." Krasus smiled at Ronan. "Congratulations, Ronan." "Yes, thank you." Ronan started crying. Dai Lin was both happy and a little jealous. Although he had pushed Jaina away for the stability and continuity of the kingdom, she was still his daughter. Seeing how well Duque treated her, Dai Lin felt a little sad. "Remember to listen to Teacher Duque." "Yes, father." Jaina replied softly. She then lowered her head and stared blankly at the magnificent and powerful pair of gloves. The banquet ended with a round of well wishes. From today onwards, Ronan and Jaina would follow Duque. Ronan had nothing to worry about, so he directly followed Duque to the state guesthouse in Stormwind. Jaina was a little more troublesome. She still had to move things from Dalajan to Karazhan, and she would meet up with Duque later. It was late at night. When Duque returned to his room, he was surprised to find that Alusia was helping him prepare the bed. This kind of thing can be left to the maids." Duque was a little embarrassed. "I don't feel safe leaving it to the maids of Lordaeron. This used to be done by Vanessa. She's not here, and I have nothing to do anyway, so I might as well do it." Alusia, who hadn't even changed out of her evening gown, rushed over and carefully made the bed. Duque felt a strange sense of warmth in his heart. "That's enough. The bed will be messy again in a while." Duque was speaking the truth. As a college pervert, as an evil person who didn't make his bed, he really didn't understand the meaning of making his bed. So, for a long time, his bed was a dog's kennel. "If the bed is clean and tidy, Aurelia and Miss Sasha will be happy," Alusia said calmly. What a good girl. If he hadn't met Aurelia before, Duque might have fallen in love with Alusia first. It was rare that Alusia came from a prestigious family, but she didn't put on airs at all. The inexplicable feeling in Duque's heart became more and more fervent. His arms crossed over the beautiful girl's shoulders and gently hugged Alusia from behind. Duque could feel the girl's body temperature rising rapidly in his arms. Duque opened his palm, revealing a strange ornament that looked like a ring. There was a cold and gentle electric light in the blue and white outer ring. "This is," right next to Alusia's ear, Duque's manly hot breath made the young lady of the Barov family go limp. "This is called Capacitor. I got it when I joined forces with Lothar to kill a powerful demon in Karazhan. Although it's not a high-grade item, I think it suits you very well." "Really? Can I?" Alusia seemed to be in slight disbelief. Even her outstretched hands were trembling slightly. After taking the ornament from Duque's palm, she stared at it for a long time. Then, she clenched it tightly with both hands and placed it closest to her heart. Ugh! Duque didn't understand why Alusia was so excited. "I know very well that my talent in magic isn't very good. Mother said that I can still hope to become a Morning Star mage in this lifetime, but it's hard to hope for anything higher. I may not be of much help in the field of magic in the future, so I only pray that I can do what I can." Hearing this, Duque fell silent. That's right. Even in the original history, Alusia was only a third-rate boss in Scholomance. Compared to Ronan and Jaina, her talent was like the difference between a firefly and a star. If Duke Barov hadn't sold food to help the refugees of Stormwind, he wouldn't have met, gotten to know Alusia. It had been almost 3 years since he transmigrated to Azeroth. His growth had long left many of his contemporaries far behind, but Duque was very clear that he wasn't someone who didn't care about old friendships. At this moment, Elugia suddenly spoke, "Duque. If you think it's necessary to marry Miss Jaina, then just marry her. I'm a girl from a declining family. As long as I can have a small corner in your heart, I'll be satisfied." Duque was shocked. Chapter 647. He understood what was going on with Elugia's sadness. Elugia, who was born in the declining Bara family, immediately felt an instinctive sense of inferiority when she saw King Daelin of Kurtira's cell Jaina. He had thought that she was a gentle woman like Sasha, but Duque now realized that Elugia, who was born in a noble family, was much more fragile than the women of the Windrunner family. The women of the Windrunner family were always full of confidence no matter what. Don't be fooled by Sasha's gentle appearance, but she was decisive on the battlefield. If Duke really died or ran off to become a ghoul, Sasha would definitely be the type of person who would kill the ghoul Duke even if she had to hold back her tears. Then, she would cry after the battle was over. Elugia, obviously needed comfort. Duque hugged Elugia. "I swear, I will never marry Jaina." Elugia shuddered. She could hardly believe what she had just heard. She really did not understand why Duque would not want the young and beautiful Jaina, who was noble and could be of help in politics. But in the next moment, Elugia's imagination filled in the blanks. "Thank you, Duque. Even if it's a lie, I'm willing to die." She turned around and buried her head in Duque's chest. Duque had no one to argue with. From the first day he crossed over to Azeroth, Duque remembered one truth: the princesses of Azeroth were all frauds. From the female wild boar named Princess in the Elven Forest, to the bear princess Ji Song who was locked in a cage on Blood Island, to the earth princess Mizrael who cheated the orcs, to the Maraudon princess in the Kalimdor continent whose measurements were 40, 80, and 40, and finally to the seemingly normal princess Jaina who sold her father, there were countless examples of frauds. In any case, Elugia absolutely could not understand Duque's fear of princesses as if they were ghosts. Fortunately, this didn't hinder her from experiencing Duque's determination. Duque could feel that the heart of the beauty in his arms was completely intoxicated. If he wanted to push her down, she probably would not refuse. But the beast Duque's conscience was playing tricks on him. Even though Duque wasn't a good person, and he had fantasized about making a killing in 3 years and never losing money, when it came down to it, girls under the age of 18 were beyond his hunting range. Didn't you see that before you transmigrated, it was written that women must not be younger than 20 years old to get married? All right. Even if he transmigrated, he couldn't go against the country's policies. What if he had the chance to transmigrate back and write his story into a novel, but was banned? The author doesn't even have a place to cry. At this moment, Duque was an upright and reliable husband. At this moment, Duque was a man of integrity that everyone loved. Surprisingly, Duque really held back. He gently patted Elugia's back, comforting this sensitive girl. Leaning against Duque's chest, Elugia could clearly feel Duque's excitement and calmness again. She slowly raised her head and stared into Duque's deep black eyes. Her face was full of shyness. "Duque, actually I can." Duque shook his head gently, then blew into Elugia's ear, "I promise you, when you turn 18, I will give you a real coming-of-age ceremony." This time, Elugia's pretty face was really red. She slowly closed her eyes. "I want a promise from you, not just a verbal promise." How could Duque not understand? He directly pressed his lips against hers. A French kiss was enough to make this little girl infatuated. Duque teased, "It's obviously a verbal promise." Elugia was so embarrassed that she ran away as fast as she could. Watching the beauty's back disappear from his sight, Duque turned his head and immediately face-bombed. "Damn, do you have to be so elusive? What appeared in his field of vision were two pairs of long white legs unique to the High Elves. The Windrunner sisters were actually sitting on the beam of the room. When did you come in? Aurelia pretended to use her right index finger to point at her sharp chin. She looked like she was thinking, then turned her head to ask her third sister, yes. When did we come in? Sasha smiled like a flower, since little Alusia folded the quilt. Pfft! Duque spurted out. What the hell, didn't that mean that they were here from the beginning? Duque complained, don't scare me. Why did you hide on the beam with your aura covered? We didn't hide. We were up there the whole time. Who told you to not look at us and jump on little Alusia the moment you entered the room? Aurelia was happy to see Duque embarrassed. Sister said that she wanted to see if you were infatuated with little Jaina. Sasha unceremoniously sold her sister out. Sister, don't think that you can sell me out just because you're my sister. Aurelia pretended to wave her little fist. Help, Duque, sister wants to deal with me. With that, Sasha screamed and jumped down. A gust of wind carried her slender body, and Sasha slowly floated down. Even with Duque's small body, he could easily princess carry Sasha and protect her. Looking at Sasha's pair of smooth calves swinging on the right side of his field of vision, Duke laughed. Don't be jealous. How can you guys miss out on a share of Nesario's good stuff? Duque waved his hand, and took out a pair of boots that were not very bright from his dimensional bag. But Duque knew that Sasha would like them. As a ranger who needed to hide, bright colors were not practical. This pair of boots with a brown base was not as good as the green ones, but they were quite good. This is the boots of dreams. They're definitely much better than your superior ones. Sasha did not go down. She just picked up the boots in Duque's arms and put them on. This is great. I feel much lighter. Where's mine? Aurelia sat on the beam, her fingers crossed under her chin as she gazed at her lover. Duque threw a belt over, and Aurelia caught it. This is best friend's belt. Oh. By the sun, well, are we only best friends? I'm so sad. Aurelia went into acting mode, looking heartbroken. Duque's face darkened, but on second thought, he also looked sad. I used to think of you as a big sister, as my best friend. Who knew that you would use your amazing beauty to seduce me? I was just a kid back then. You actually did such a vicious thing. Duque was so sincere. If one did not know the truth, they would really think that Aurelia was a female pervert. Pfft. This time, it was Sasha's turn to laugh so hard that her stomach cramped. Aurelia looked embarrassed and angry. You little bastard. You took advantage of us, and you're still being sarcastic? You're great. I'll come down and kill you right now. The three of them immediately laughed together. Chapter 648. The whole night was filled with fairies fighting. Oh, fighting fairies. The sun rose, and the cold morning wind blew away the dark clouds. The rising sun reluctantly rose over the Alterac Mountains, and the warm sunlight shone into the room, waking Duque up. Aurelia was still sleeping soundly on the right, and there was a satisfied smile on her lips. No matter how many times Duque looked at her, he would always be fascinated by her alluring mix of nobility and wildness. Beside him, Sasha's long legs clamped onto Duque's thighs. Duque smiled, and moved his body a few times to free himself from the elastic thighs. Duque's getting up did not wake the two sisters up. After losing Duque as a human pillow, Sasha unconsciously moved to the right and hugged her sister. Aurelia seemed to be subconsciously used to her sister's actions. After a whimper, she hugged her sister with one hand. After Duque washed up, he went out and saw Alusia, Gavin Rad, and the captain of his knights, Casa, waiting outside. Make an appointment for me with His Majesty Rin, Commander Lothar, and Archbishop Fail. 2 hours later, everyone was present. Do you really not need more people to clean up Karazhan? Lang asked with concern. Duque shook his head. No need. Karazhan is too narrow, and there are too many people. After all, it's my own territory. I know what I'm doing. Anduin's loud voice sounded. Duque is right. That damned place, it's useless to have too many people there. Besides, these elites can protect themselves anywhere in the world, let alone Karazhan. Looking around, Duque's Karazhan raid team was gorgeous. The warrior and main tank was Muradin Bronzebeard, who had run over after hearing the news. The vanguard was Gavin Rad and Tyrion Fordring, 2 first-generation paladins. The thief was Edwin Van Cleef. The long-range team was the 3 Windrunner sisters, plus the 2 mages, Duque and Ronan. The healer was Stormwind City's Holy Light Bishop Benedict. Duque took a look and laughed so hard that his stomach was about to burst. These were elites? Damn, he was clearly pulling a bunch of heroes and leader bosses to fight another bunch of bosses. Perhaps only Duque would be able to do something so deranged. If these guys were in their heyday in the future, Duque would definitely not need the help of the 4 great dragon kings. He would just lead them to torture Nesario to death. At this moment, they still had serious expressions on their faces. Muradin and the 2 paladins were repeatedly checking their hammers and shields. Edwin carefully smeared poison on his dagger. This was the first time Duque had summoned him after recovering all of Stormwind. For a while, Edwin almost thought that he'd lost Duque's attention and was a bit depressed. Now that Duque had summoned him to clean up Karazhan, of course Edwin was excited. The 3 Windrunner sisters all had different reactions. Sylvanas and Sasha couldn't wait to see the creatures and enemies of the other world, while Aurelia acted like a big sister, warning them not to be careless. Ronan was nervously revising the magic in his magic book. After seeing the War with Dragons, he was already considered experienced, but when he heard about monsters coming out of the spatial rift, he couldn't help but feel nervous again. On the contrary, Bishop Benedict was the calmest. He looked like he was ready to fool people with holy light at any time. Beside him, Lucia was a little worried. Duque, you gave me your accessory. What are you going to use? Duque patted his waist. This is Cruel's ruse. This is the same as Ronan's unruly will. They're both products of Nesario. I guarantee it with absolute confidence. Only then did Lucia feel relieved. Don't worry about this guy. No matter who dies, it won't be him. Aurelia had her hands on her hips. For some reason, whenever this topic was brought up, Aurelia would always think of Duque's fake death twice. If she hadn't personally confirmed that Duque was a living person, perhaps even she would have thought that Duque was some kind of undead. Alright, be careful. Don't worry. I still have a team of Einherjar and a powerful mechanical construct in Karazhan. If not, I can call for help. Duque waved a necklace around his neck. The necklace itself was plain, but there were red scales where the necklace was. The teleportation door opened. The cleanup team entered in a single file. After becoming a Radiant Moon Archmage, Duque's teleportation door had become more stable. During the teleportation process, there was only a slight tremor. It was not even comparable to riding a horse. In his field of vision, everything stretched out, and the surrounding scenery became strange and blurry. The Windrunner sisters, who had experienced many teleportations, did not feel anything, but Muradin and Edwin, who were teleporting for the first time, vomited almost as soon as they stepped out of the teleportation door. As soon as he stepped out of the door, Duque saw Khadgar in his soul form. Master, you're finally back. We can't hold on any longer. Whoa. I'm back. Duque comforted Khadgar. Although Khadgar's behavior was a little funny, Duque also felt that he had let Khadgar down. During the entire World War II at the Dark Portal, Duque had only returned to Karazhan a few times. If not for Khadgar leading the Einherjar to maintain control of the Wizard Tower, Duque would not have been able to trick the group of wizards into coming here. Duque did a quick check. During Lothar's raid on Karazhan, the bosses they had defeated were Atuman the Hunter, Moros the Butler, Evil Hoof, Chess, and Prince. Mediva's late father, Alan, had already disappeared after blocking the curse for Duque. The curator was controlled by Duque. In reality, there were not many boss-level monsters left. If it was the Earth Wizard Duque from before, it would definitely be difficult. But now, Duque was really used to train his troops. A demon that Alexstrasza had specifically reminded him of was definitely not some random person. But, who could it be? Duque repeatedly compared the demons in his memory with names, his mind in a mess. In reality, the demons in Azeroth were not called demons. To be precise, they were a race called Eridar. This highly intelligent humanoid race did not come from the world of Azeroth or Draenor. They came from an ancient and faraway world called Argus. When Sargeras was fighting against the Dreadlord, he was affected by the mind manipulation spell. After that, he began to doubt his own divine life. He persuaded Kil'jaeden and Archimonde, one of the three heads of Eridar, and Eridar split up. The more righteous prophet Willan left with his people and ran to Draenor to seek refuge. Those Eridar people later became the Draenei. As for the remaining Eridar people who followed the two Burning Legion commanders, they began to be called Man'ari, which were the demons in the eyes of the people of Azeroth. Chapter 649. By the way, Duque, your army isn't weak at all. Why can't you take down the second level? Aurelia asked head butler Khadgar, whom Duque had arranged to stay in Karazhan, as they passed through the ballroom on the second level of Karazhan. This was not Aurelia's fault. The other members of the team had the same question as well. There were more than 100 people in the team, and it felt like any one of them could easily take down a team of royal knights. There was also Khadgar, the ghost butler with unknown strength. There was also a mysterious golem called Curator. Strong no matter how one looked at it. Khadgar's face suddenly showed a sad expression. Those demons. Those damn demons. We can't fight them at all. Curator is too big, we can't go in. This has nothing to do with combat power, it's just, sob. They bullied me. After saying this, Khadgar actually ran away in tears. The accompanying Einherjars also had strange expressions on their faces. They all stayed on the second level and refused to move. Master, we can't fight against those demons, but with Lady Windrunner and the other ladies here, there shouldn't be a problem, right? What's the problem? Sasha asked curiously. It had been a long time since he had returned, and Duque's memories were a little fuzzy. But when he went up the stairs and heard a flirtatious and seductive female voice coming from the corridor ahead, the dust-covered memories reopened. Damn it! No wonder that brat Khadgar lost so badly. Why isn't that Khadgar coming? Things just got interesting the last time. Sigh. It's always over so quickly. A ghost mage, well, the process itself is quite interesting. Looking at the flirtatious female attendants in revealing clothes not far from the guest hall, Duque's side thought of Khadgar's escape, and a few men laughed shamelessly. Duque was speechless. He face-bombed, not wanting to say anything. Wow! Gavin Rad whistled. I like this style, it's a pity, that's right. What a pity. The female attendants at the front were extremely attractive. They had round faces, perky buttocks, and long white legs. They had everything that should be there. They were definitely in line with the visual sense of a normal man. Coquettish sluts could attract men's attention no matter where they were. If they weren't succubi. At this moment, the three Windrunner sisters surrounded Duque. Aurelia rolled her eyes. Fortunately, I've been by your side for the past year. Otherwise, would have doubted your taste. This time, Sasha did not compromise. Humph. If you bring such a fellow into the house, my sister and I will leave at once. Duque surrendered. Please, this is Karazhan, the connecting point of countless voids. It wasn't strange for any kind of person to come out. Leave this kind of woman for Gavin Rad. Gavin Rad immediately protested, hey. I'm a first-generation holy knight. As someone with an incomparably noble character and sentiments, only a woman who also emits holy light can move my heart. Oh, she must have a good figure. I don't want a beautiful woman who doesn't conform to the golden ratio. Hee. Duque shamelessly smiled mysteriously. Aurelia raised the hunting bow in her hand and seemed to be pointing at something. Then, Duque, you don't mind if I get rid of these pretty vases, right? Why would I have any objections? Succubi were extremely lethal to every male. Men would always find it hard to resist charm-type skills. It seemed like Khadgar's moral integrity was lost here and could not be retrieved. But Duke didn't understand. Why didn't Khadgar's soul scatter? What the three Windstalker sisters practiced was the lying corpse archery. After a wave of shio sounds, Gavin Rad watched with regret as those balls, butts, and legs all turned into raging flames, disappearing from his field of view. Everyone continued down the corridor. After clearing out the phantom guardians in 2 rooms, a dignified female voice suddenly sounded. Intruders. Your actions are unforgivable. Impure thoughts will lead to blasphemous actions. You must be purified. Come, let me, as the Saintess of Chastity, be your opponent. Muradin and Edwin, who were leading the charge, were stunned. The next second, the bastard dwarf pointed to the front shamelessly. There, Gavin Rad, your favorite woman who emits holy light, is here. Do you want to talk to her? Just one look, and Gavin Rad felt unwell. Damn! What the hell was that? It was true that she emitted holy light. The golden ratio was true. It was also true that she was a woman. And the Saintess of Chastity. But, why the hell were you a 10-meter-tall stone giant? What happened to the fun and flirting? Gavin Rad, who had always thought of himself as elegant, was petrified. A gust of wind blew, and everyone seemed to see Gavin Rad's soul dissipate with the wind. The female giant was very tall, and she was in a huge hall at the end of the corridor. The thick pillars in the middle of the hall seemed to have some mysterious power that prevented the female giant from walking out. What do we do? Everyone looked at Duque. Duque shrugged. There's nothing we can do. The demon army is about to attack, and I have to eliminate all the unstable factors in Karazhan. Although it's a bit unfair to Gavin Rad's girlfriend, I can only ask her to destroy it. Hey. Who's my girlfriend? Don't think you can say whatever you want just because you're my boss. You have a princess as your fiancée, and I'm still single. Gavin Rad's threatening roar was ignored. Duque commanded, everyone, spread out. Since the opponent is holy, she might have AoE skills like devotion that can penetrate the ground with holy light. The Saintess of Chastity. This was a dummy boss that could be defeated with one's eyes closed. Duque didn't feel anything for this female boss who was surrounded by a group of succubi for some reason. With a command, everyone rushed forward, sharpening their weapons to defeat the boss. Another accident happened. Are you, an emissary of the holy light? Without any reaction to Muradin's shield strike on her calf, the Holy Maiden of Chastity knelt on one knee and stared at Gavin Rad with shining golden eyes. Huh! Gavinrad's face was full of confusion. Tyrion Fordring raised his long two-handed hammer. Yes. He and I are both first-generation paladins who have inherited the holy light, the Azeroth. The holy maiden of chastity nodded. I'm so happy to meet companions who believe in the same holy power in different worlds. It seems that you are not my enemy. My name is Jenna Christian. What's your name? Gavinrad's mind was in a mess, and he answered almost subconsciously, Gavinrad Bad Luck. Looking at the harmonious exchange of questions and answers, Muradin turned his head. Gavinrad, how dare you say she's not your girlfriend? Chapter 650. Dwarves were all straightforward people. Unless it involved secrets, they would usually say whatever they thought. Otherwise, why would the gun called, dwarf fishing rod, be so famous? Muradin's big mouth pushed Gavinrad directly onto the fire. Apart from Theon, after a brief moment of confusion, almost everyone held in their laughter until they suffered internal injuries. Gavinrad was also a big mouth. He had just finished talking about his criteria for choosing a girlfriend, and then a boss that fit his criteria jumped out. He really deserved it. Gavinrad almost had the urge to kill him. But the bastard Duque continued to push the poor paladin into the fire with a straight face. In order to face the coming demon army, we must unite all holy forces. Gavinrad, Theon, I'll leave the task of communicating with her to you. Yes. Theon straightened his back. Yes. Gavinrad looked like he was going to a funeral. The female giant Jenna did not seem to notice Duque's shenanigans. Instead, she knelt down excitedly and asked the two paladins all sorts of questions. Duque casually said, I wish you all happiness. Then Duque patted his butt and left. This was a small step for Gavinrad to sacrifice himself, but it was also a big step for the great cause of the holy light. Ah! May the holy light fool you. If in the future, books like Interracial Love Under the Banner of the Way of the Holy Light or The Unspeakable Story of the First Paladin and the Female Giant of Holy Light appeared in Azeroth, or even tricked the rookie paladins later on, Duque said that it had absolutely nothing to do with him. After leaving the hall, the bastards finally could not hold it in and burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. I'm dying of laughter. I want to ask, if Gavinrad and that Jenna had a child, how tall would his child be? Muradin was the first to fire. Ronan replied stupidly, generally speaking, it seems difficult to have children of different races. But there are exceptions. For example, Miss Jessie Farrell in the Stormwind Fleet has dwarven blood. And elves and humans can also give birth to half-elves. Humans and female giants might also be possible. Luo Ning was truly stupid, but in the ears of others, it sounded like Luo Ning was seriously insulting Gavinrad. For some reason, the three Windrunner sisters blushed when they heard the word half-elf. Of course, except for Benedict, the Bishop of Holy Light, the focus of their discussion naturally fell on the immoral topic of how humans could have children with stone giants. Without two holy knights, the vanguard of the team was much weaker. But it was not important. After dealing with the succubus disguised as a maid, Karthika and his heroic army returned to the battlefield. Khadgar led more than 100 translucent Einherjars and fought against the ghostly guests who were wandering around the ballroom and on the way to the opera house. Duque breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, he was still a bit unsure about clearing out Karazhan. This was Azeroth in real life. It wasn't a game that simply ranked the strong and the weak. The people around him had all stepped into the realm of heroes. It could be said that apart from Luo Ning, who was still a sky mage, none of them were weak. On the other hand, their bodies could not be as strong and durable as in the game. Perhaps in the game, every powerful leader could withstand the attacks of hundreds of top players. Unfortunately, this was reality. After seeing Anduin and Orgrim injure each other so easily, Duque understood. Perhaps they had extraordinary reflexes and strength, and could use mysterious powers that transcended the mortal world, but deep down, they were still weak mortals. The priests in this world did not have any resurrection spells. The only one who could resurrect a person was Duque. Sighing, Duque and the others had arrived at the opera house in Karazhan. Wow! So beautiful! After this place is cleaned up, can we enjoy the opera here? Sasha shook Duque's arm excitedly. Duque laughed. Of course. After dealing with the attack of the demons, you sisters can decorate the place however you want. Along the way, the ghost audience and ghost servants had all been killed by the Einherjars. Unlike monsters in the real world, ghosts usually wouldn't leave any traces after they disappeared. What appeared in front of the adventurer team was a slightly dilapidated opera house. The scale of the opera house was so large that it was comparable to the Sydney Opera House before Duque traveled to this world. Yes, it was a smaller version. The middle of the horseshoe-shaped hall was for ordinary people to sit in. The three sides of the hall were VIP seats that were 3 levels high. Looking at the expensive satin decorations and the beautiful tables, chairs, and tableware, it was not hard to imagine the grand occasion when King Lang and Anduin brought a large group of nobles from Stormwind to watch the opera. This was an era where entertainment was scarce. Other than the low-level clowns and bards who would perform in the market, the biggest entertainment for the nobles was the opera. It was true that the Windrunner sisters were rangers, but where did Aurelia's elegance and beautiful harp skills come from? She had also gone through strict etiquette training and a long period of musical training. Suddenly, the melodious sound of the organ reverberated in everyone's ears. Following the direction of the music, Duque and the others found that Sylvanas had sat on the huge organ on the left side of the stage. Queen Sylvanas's slender fingers danced across the keys, producing beautiful notes. In a trance, everyone saw a lush green forest, smelled the fragrance of flowers mixed with the fragrance of the earth, and heard the chirping of birds echoing in the forest. Everyone was mesmerized by it. Before they knew it, the song had ended. It was not just Duque and the others, even the Einherjars gave Sylvanas a warm applause. Sylvanas sighed. Duque, you have so many good things here. There are only 2 such national treasures in the whole of Kuel Salis. Duque shrugged. If you like it, you can come here every day. I won't be in your way. Queen Sylvanas rolled her eyes at Duque with a complicated expression. Humph. Duque was a little confused. He turned to Aurelia and asked, "Did I piss her off?" Aurelia covered her mouth and snickered. "I won't tell you my sister's secret." "Look, Duque, can I go on the stage?" Windsor pointed excitedly at the huge stage that was covered by a red curtain, her hands waving. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.